Under the cover of night, a small vessel is moored as a handful of men gather, conversing intently with their leader. Surrounding them are numerous barrels, each containing the lifeless body of a single victim. Rumor has it that the deceased are sorted in this manner, some destined for coffins, others confined to urns. The mafia boss probes for the exact tally of corpses processed so far. One subordinate replies, confirming there are 33 bodies in total. The boss then commands that the task be completed before dawn. Lost in thought about who judged his fate, a man reflects quietly as the boss puffs on a cigarette and his crew adds chemicals to the barrels to erase all traces. Remaining calm and unfazed, the mafia boss flicks his cigarette ash into the sea below. Once again, a person contemplates his past existence, wondering what kind of life he truly led. Inside one barrel, a seemingly lifeless body stirs faintly, pondering whether it will remain trapped in this grim place. Meanwhile, a security officer briefs his team, introducing a woman known as Snow White. The officer displays her photo, emphasizing that she is their prime target. One team member questions why she bears the name Snow White. He points out that she isn't Caucasian, resembles an ordinary Asian woman, and appears too frail to warrant such attention. Team leader Kim Seok responds that they must not judge her by appearance or gender. She is, in fact, extraordinarily dangerous. Her true identity is Anna Nanyama, also known as Snow White, who commands the Yakuza organization. She earned the moniker Snow White because she supplies high-purity cocaine, making her a pivotal drug trafficker. She is set to host a drug-fueled party at a hotel with minimal security, following her meetings with both domestic and international factions. To curb the domestic spread of illegal drugs, this event must be seized as a critical chance to take her down. She is notorious for drugging and assaulting innocent young women. The officer briefs his team that, since this mission will appear as a gang dispute, the use of firearms is strictly prohibited. He chuckles, explaining that the operation's difficulty is why they assign their top agent to lead it. The team leader's name is Seok. One teammate teases that only Seok has their full trust as leader of the team. With confidence, Seok asserts that they should entrust him with the success of the mission. Our protagonist now steps into the hotel, where numerous Yakuza members stand alert. The Yakuza eye him suspiciously, wondering how he gained access and what his purpose is there. He communicates to his team that Alpha has just entered the premises. Suddenly, he draws a large knife and charges toward the Yakuza members. In response, the Yakuza brandish their own knives and launch an attack against him. They engage in a fierce knife fight, exchanging swift and lethal strikes. Seok swiftly slashes the throat of one assailant. He then systematically takes down the remaining Yakuza, eliminating them one after another. Recalling his briefing, Seok notes that approximately 10 non-combatants must be neutralized, with over 20 armed opponents present. When asked how many agents he requires for the entry, he confidently states that only 3, including himself, are needed. His officer is puzzled, questioning why he's leading the operation with only 3 agents. Seok clarifies that since the building has 3 exits, they have no choice. After all, this is an extermination mission, and the number of Yakuza inside is irrelevant. Clutching a bloodied knife, the protagonist declares that no enemy can overpower his brothers. One of his brothers points out that the task has been made simpler because he has already taken out many Yakuza stationed at his side of the entrance. The hero introduces himself as an NIS black agent, a rare survivor from hell, while Seok urges his brother to stay focused on the mission, an admonition met with affirmative resolve. Approaching the main objective, Seok informs his team that everyone else will be incapacitated by drugs. He emphasizes that this area has only a single exit. Seok commands his squad to seal off the exit and eliminate every target without exception. As he turns the door handle and opens it, he is horrified to see Snow White violently abusing a young girl. The sight leaves all 3 men utterly stunned. Upon entering the room, they are struck by the grim scene. Bodies lie strewn everywhere, all victims already dead. Seok orders his men to locate the main target immediately, but first to secure the entrance and lock the door behind them. Suddenly, a knock echoes from the door. Curious about the visitor, they are shocked to hear that Snow White is outside. She informs them coldly that the entrance is sealed and the door firmly locked. Snow White holds the young girl's severed head in her hand, contemplating whether to kill them all. Trapped inside the barrel, Seok's lifeless body reflects on the fate of his brothers. The very ones who once believed themselves invincible are now staring death in the face. Yet now their adversary is Snow White, who greets them with a chilling smile. Without warning, she locks eyes on one brother and flicks a tiny object in his direction. He ponders curiously, unsure of what has just been hurled his way. The small projectile pierces through his forehead with lethal precision, killing him instantly. Simultaneously, she flings the severed head of the dead girl. This strike lands so swiftly that none can react in time. It cuts through his skull like a bullet, and in a mere instant, he crumples lifelessly to the ground. Outraged, Sayak's second brother lunges at Snow White, but Sayak cautions him to halt, warning that their foe is far from ordinary. With lethal accuracy, Snow White hurls that same tiny object at him, and Sayak watches helplessly as a hole appears in his brother's head before he collapses dead. Snow White mocks them with a laugh, declaring that no matter how many pests swarm, they're still just insignificant bugs to her. She taunts our hero directly, daring him to reveal what he thinks he can accomplish. At first, anger surges within him. He draws his knife and charges toward her, determined to strike. But then he realizes the need for calm. This adversary exceeds his limits, and he knows he cannot retreat defeated now. Once again, she sends the same tiny object flying toward him. He swiftly dodges the attack. To his shock, he realizes the projectile is actually a tooth, and he notices she's clutching a handful of them. She relentlessly hurls these teeth at him, but our hero expertly evades each one with his lightning-fast reflexes. Just as he closes the distance, poised to strike, she intervenes before he can cause any damage. Seizing him by the face, she forcefully flings him far away to keep him at bay. Sayak is stunned, finding it inconceivable that a woman could wield such formidable powers, and he wonders about the source of her strength. Without warning, she leaps into the air, gripping his knife tightly. She lands directly onto his knees with targeted precision. The impact sends sharp, excruciating pain coursing through him. Perched atop him, she confesses her strong attraction toward him. Her excitement intensifies as she plunges the knife through his hand, rendering him utterly defenseless. Snow White remarks that his vulnerability only heightens her thrill. She twists the knife still embedded in his hand, amplifying his agony. Our hero cries out in torment, bewildered by the dark amusement she derives from this. Pointing toward the lifeless bodies surrounding them, she explains that this scene of chaos and taking lives purely for pleasure defines her idea of entertainment. Sayak recoils at that twisted definition of fun, his scream echoing his pain and disbelief. With a surge of desperation, he clamps his teeth down fiercely on her neck. He tears away a chunk of flesh, refusing to surrender. Seizing a sharp shard of broken glass, he drives it deep into her neck, causing blood to gush profusely. Relieved and victorious, our hero watches as she lies motionless, finally subdued on top of him. He believes his revenge is complete, convinced he will survive alone after this ordeal. He addresses his brothers, offering an apology but promising that he will reunite with them soon. To his shock, she regains consciousness. Sayak is baffled by how this is possible and screams out in disbelief. Snow White remarks that despite being human, his ability to bite her neck was remarkably impressive. Terrified, Sayak frantically questions what kind of creature she could be as panic overwhelms him. She tells him not to bother trying to understand, it would be futile for someone like him. She explains that he is the first person of his kind she's encountered, and admits she had hoped he could succeed in this. Without hesitation, she presses the knife deeper into his hand. The blade's movement inflicts excruciating pain on him. Overwhelmed by the unbearable agony, our protagonist ultimately loses consciousness. Snow White remains seated atop him, disdainfully labeling him pathetic. At that moment, the rest of the Yakuza members enter the room, anxiously asking about her well-being. She turns her gaze toward them with a chilling calmness. Without warning, she hurls the same tooth, striking the first man in the head and killing him instantly. The remaining members freeze, paralyzed by fear and silence. She commands the surviving Yakuza to remove the bodies immediately. They are ordered to prepare for departure back to Japan without delay. Meanwhile, Sayak stands naked inside his barrel, drenched in chemicals, staring up at the sky as he reflects on the saying that death forms measure life. One Yakuza member glances at his partner, questioning why this situation is unfolding. The other responds with equal confusion. Their leader chuckles and points out the man, telling them not to worry because he is certain he's already dead. One member speculates whether this is rigor mortis or something unfamiliar, pondering the kind of grudge that could drive such behavior. Our protagonist contemplates the consequences of resisting death and refusing to give in. Their leader presses his burning cigarette against Sayak's neck and commands his men to hurry and bury the man, insisting he deserves peace at last. Sayak anxiously contemplates the type of judgment awaiting him. Suddenly, the burn wound on his neck, caused by the cigarette, miraculously closes up. This astonishing recovery catches the boss off guard, leaving him puzzled. Meanwhile, Sayak remains absorbed in thoughts about how his demise will be assessed. The Yakuza leader questions whether Sayak has truly survived. Sayak, however, believes he will earn his evaluation only after avenging that despicable man. He recalls the moment when he and his two brothers were huddled in a hotel room, updating each other on their readiness. Alpha confirms he's clear first, then Charlie, while Sayak orders all field operatives to converge on the primary target, noting they will be under the influence of drugs. He also warns that there's only a single exit from the area. Their mission is to seal off that exit and eliminate every target within. Now standing alone in the hallway, he wonders where everyone else has disappeared to. Without warning, a hand clamps over his mouth from behind. He discovers it belongs to an enormous, monstrous snow-white entity with countless hands, all clutching him tightly from behind. She tells him that he has succeeded in his mission. The protagonist struggles to break free from her grasp. She welcomes him warmly, laughing and declaring that he is the Daywalker. Suddenly, Sayak's eyes snap open inside a barrel. Sunlight bathes his face. He notices a ship gliding through the sea. He feels a throbbing pain in his head. His naked body is smeared with blood. He struggles to recall what he was doing. To his astonishment, he surveys the area and sees numerous dead Yakuza members strewn about. He wonders in disbelief what chaos this is and who could be responsible. Out of nowhere, a young man calls him by name and introduces himself as an agent from headquarters. He instructs him to accompany them immediately. At that moment, they are all traveling together in a car. During the drive, he asks them about the events that unfolded on the ship. The officer replies that the investigation is ongoing and, upon hearing that he completed the mission, wonders if he feels exhausted. He assures them that he feels perfectly fine. The officer advises that since the journey is long, he should try to get some rest during the trip. As they speak, Sayak notices that he is wearing a gas mask. Without warning, toxic gas starts flowing from the car's air conditioning system. The protagonist wonders who these people really are. Both officers seated up front are also protecting themselves with gas masks. Slowly, the protagonist begins to lose consciousness. One of the officers reports to the director that they have successfully secured the specimen. Meanwhile, the director laughs triumphantly, congratulating his officers on a job well done and instructing them to transport the specimen to the laboratory. He adds that they will initiate the dissection immediately upon arrival. The director stands near his desk, his expression twisted with manic delight. He laughs like a madman, exclaiming that he has finally obtained what he's been after. That object, he reflects, is the one he refers to as Snow White. Soon the car arrives at headquarters. The director orders the researchers to gather quickly and unload the specimen from the car, emphasizing the numerous experiments awaiting their attention. As the researchers open the car's trunk, they are horrified to discover the lifeless bodies of 2 officers inside. As the researchers ponder the mysterious occurrence, a massive tooth suddenly bursts through the car window, instantly killing one of them. In an instant, each researcher and agent begins dropping dead, collapsing one after another. They all suffer fatal blows to their heads, succumbing immediately. The director stands in shock, bewildered as his entire team lies lifeless around him. He struggles to comprehend how such devastation could have unfolded. With the car door ajar, the protagonist steps out calmly. Fear overtakes the director as he watches him approach. Panicked, he bolts away, shouting commands for all units to eliminate the man immediately. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, Sayak methodically reloads his weapon. Soon, a group of agents sprint toward him with urgency. Their hands grip knives ready to attack. Unfazed, Sayak picks them off, shooting each one in the head with precision. One after another, the assailants collapse to the ground. An agent manages to close in and lunges at him with a knife. Sayak swiftly fires into the attacker's arm, then follows with a single shot to the head that ends the threat. As more agents rush in brandishing knives, he effortlessly dodges their assaults. He quickly neutralizes one by killing him and stabs another amid the melee. After dispatching the stabbed agent, he shoots the remaining attacker without hesitation. Suddenly, an agent from a distance lands a critical shot to Sayak's head. Moments later, the agent reports to the director that they have successfully subdued him. The remaining agents gather around Sayak's lifeless body sprawled across the ground. All of them are heavily armed with firearms. But as they close in, Sayak suddenly draws his weapon and fires, instantly taking down 2 of them. The other agent shouts in disbelief, insisting he shot him squarely in the head and questions why he's still alive and moving. Meanwhile, our protagonist grips the agent firmly by the throat as the agent screams, desperately pleading for mercy. After ending the agent's life, our protagonist reflects on how he and his team devoted their entire existence to serving their country. In the background, the director flees wildly while shouting out for assistance. He recalls the moment he eliminated 2 agents inside the car. He then recalls reading the director's chilling order to kill him. He realizes they were merely sacrificed to further the director's personal ambitions. His eyes lock onto the director as he desperately tries to escape. He vows to show the director just how ferocious the very dog he discarded can become. He strides away from the parking lot where he has taken the lives of countless agents. Sayak contemplates that he may have faced death 2 or even 3 times before. He remains utterly perplexed by the strange sensations overtaking his body. What he knows without question is that, as an agent, his mission is to gather intel and eliminate threats. The director desperately pleads for calm, promising to explain the circumstances and assist with Sayak's forthcoming promotion. He begs Sayak to lower his weapon. As this plea unfolds, our protagonist shoots the director sharply in the leg. The director continues to plead earnestly, imploring Sayak to pause and hear him out. Our hero cuts him off, bluntly telling him to be silent and demanding answers. Now, Sayok must know what the director has done to him. The director insists there's been a misunderstanding, but urges Sayok to hear him out fully. Without warning, our hero fires into the director's other leg. He commands the director to stop wasting time with pointless chatter. The director reveals that even if someone dies, they can be revived, their injuries healing swiftly. Notably, some of Snow White's operatives share this ability. Thanks to that cutting-edge technology, those operatives rapidly rose to dominate the Japanese underworld despite being newcomers. The director admits their ambition to acquire that powerful technology for themselves. Sayok questions the director's reasons for dispatching those previous agents. The director explains that none of those agents returned with any intel, all perished. Consequently, the plan was overhauled, replacing those mediocre operatives with a dependable one. That's why Sayok was handpicked for this critical mission. The director continues, noting that once Snow White arrived in Korea, she brought that advanced technology with her. From then on, Sayok wouldn't have to fear injuries, even on the deadliest missions. He praises Sayok's dedication as a team leader and hails him as a true hero. But the hero responds by firing a shot into the director's arm. The director shouts, confused and hurt, reminding him he's revealed everything, so why shoot him now? Sayok questions how the director can call him a hero while secretly planning to use him as a mere test subject. Had the director truly understood the dangers posed by that scoundrel, he would have gathered far more intelligence instead of suffering continued losses. All those deaths were the tragic consequence of the director's insatiable greed. Sayok is convinced his fallen comrades could have been saved if the truth had been known. The director reveals that he possesses unusual powers and insists that those Yakuza thugs are still just human beings. He asserts confidently that he would never be defeated by anyone. He speculates whether these deaths weren't Sayok's responsibility, suggesting they perished because they embarked on a mission doomed from the start. The director points out they were honored with medals posthumously and questions why Sayok is still making a scene, angrily branding him a bastard. However, Sayok's fury boils over, causing him to slam his forehead against his gun in frustration. He commands Sayok to stop immediately and not utter another word. Drawing his knife, he challenges the director to experience the agony endured by the agents, warning that the night ahead will be painfully long as he advances toward him. The director, nearly in tears, pleads desperately for patience. Without warning, 4 vehicles arrive on scene, and their occupants order Sayok to disarm and surrender instantly. The director shouts at his agents, furious about the delay in their arrival after his repeated calls. 14 Special Forces commandos emerge from the vehicles, swiftly taking tactical positions to confront Sayok. Our protagonist senses the danger escalating and knows he must seek cover immediately. He breaks into a run to evade the threat. The commandos open fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets. He takes multiple hits and collapses to the ground, wounded. The commando leader orders an immediate ceasefire. Mocking Sayok, the director sneers that his arrogance has finally caught up with him. He declares that Sayok only needs to be restrained for life and willingly give them his blood, wondering aloud if Sayok possesses the ability to resurrect and heal himself as well. He should keep relentlessly attacking, whether it's him or the Yakuza. The director sneers, remarking sarcastically that Sayok has really put in the effort, as they prepare to overwhelm him with sheer firepower. Unexpectedly, the director catches the sound of a woman's voice. She peers down from the rooftop, observing them closely, wondering if the man below is Sayok. He immediately identifies her as squad leader Aka. She informs him that the group he just mentioned is indeed the Yakuza. The director shouts an order to eliminate that insolent thug as well. She leaps behind the ranks of the commandos with agility. The commandos exchange bewildered glances, wondering when she appeared. Turning swiftly, she begins slicing through them one after another. She dispatches half of the commandos before springing back up to the rooftop. The commando leader yells a command to open fire immediately. Stunned, they watch as she slices through their incoming bullets with swift strokes of her sword. With blinding speed, she methodically cuts down the remaining members of their squad. In the blink of an eye, she has eliminated most of the enemy force. From a distance, a sniper takes aim and fires at her. She spots the bullet hurtling towards her. With precision, she slices the bullet cleanly in half. The last 2 surviving commandos whisper in disbelief, questioning what kind of supernatural being she could be. After witnessing her deflect bullets and slaughter their comrades, they can't fathom her true nature. Suddenly, she leaps at them with inhuman speed, killing one instantly. Without hesitation, she slashes down the second attacker. Now she strides toward the director, wielding a gleaming sword in each hand. Under the moonlight, both swords shimmer as she advances purposefully. The director repeatedly mutters the word monster in a mixture of fear and disbelief. With a swift motion, she splits his head cleanly in 2 before he can react. She appears before our hero just as he begins to regain consciousness. She questions whether he is Sayok and informs him that Lady Anna has requested his presence. Still seething, our protagonist harshly tells her to leave and insults her with a derogatory term. At this point, the female Yakuza clarifies that she wasn't there to apprehend him. Rather, she declares with a menacing tone that she is here to deliver him to Lady Anna. Suddenly, she lunges at our hero, but he quickly blocks her attack with his knife. She admits that he is highly formidable and impressive. Sayok worries he may have lost too much blood and fears the situation will only worsen as it drags on. At that moment, she strikes again, pressing her assault. He contemplates whether this confrontation is his only option. She lands another blow with her twin swords, telling him he's lasted longer than expected. But she warns him this marks the end of his resistance. Her onslaught continues with unyielding intensity. At last, her sword pierces deeply into his chest, staring down at the blade embedded in him. He seizes her wrist firmly, pulls the sword free from his chest, and retaliates by slashing at her with his knife. Both combatants tumble apart, but he manages to decapitate her with a precise strike. Our protagonist believes that this time, he has truly severed Snow White's head. He succeeds in cutting off her head. However, at the same moment, she slices his arm off. Still, he insists that he has emerged victorious. Feeling his consciousness fading, he senses death closing in once more. Suddenly, the attacker's headless body rises again, praising him as impressive. Our hero is left speechless and terrified at this terrifying sight. He silently watches as she calmly reattaches her head to her neck. Strangely enough, her neck heals itself without any help. She then tells him that Lady Anna would approve of this, but Sayok grows anxious as his body remains completely immobile. She steps onto his chest, pressing her sword firmly against him. She informs him that he has performed admirably and that upon awakening, he will stand before Lady Anna herself. Overwhelmed by fear, he can only stare helplessly at her. Without a word, she drives her sword into his chest and remains poised there. She remarks that by now he should be subdued, considering his blood flow has been severed, yet he remains conscious. She warns him to return before time runs out. Placing her hand on him, she bizarrely enables him to rise to his feet. She tells him that resisting is futile. Despite this, Sayok lunges forward to strike her with a punch. In response, she severs her last remaining hand and taunts him as foolish. She warns that if he continues like this, he will lose all his limbs one by one. Surprised, she watches as his arm regenerates and he strikes her with newfound force. Soon after, his second arm regrows, now thick with powerful muscles. With one fierce blow, he tears away the skin from her arm. She suspects that her skin is regenerating again, but at an extraordinary speed. He launches an astonishingly swift assault, sinking his teeth into her arms. His bite is so fierce that she is forced to sever her arms to break free from his grip. Using magic, she regenerates her severed arms once more. Yet he still holds one of her arms firmly between his teeth, like a wild animal. She fears that if this continues, she will lose everything dear to her. With a sudden leap into the air, she launches a fierce attack against him. She is taken aback when she notices his teeth are unnaturally large and razor-sharp. He howls fiercely like a wolf, his massive, powerful frame tearing his shirt to shreds, leaving her to wonder what creature he could possibly be. Without warning, a bullet strikes him squarely in the head. As she struggles to comprehend the sudden chaos unfolding before her, several armed men emerge, gripping guns tightly in their hands. Among them, a woman steps forward solemnly, invoking Father in Heaven with a heavy heart. They declare that these two are being sent to their doom. The woman locked in battle with our protagonist freezes, frightened as the armed group curses them mercilessly. The striking woman who arrived with her soldiers commands them to open fire on both captives. The soldiers aim deliberately for their legs, following their leader's orders to immobilize rather than kill immediately. Both victims collapse painfully as bullets strike their wounded legs. At that instant, the female commander signals her troops to halt and points assertively at our protagonist, ordering them to set him ablaze. The soldiers then shoot specialized arrows wired to deliver electric shocks directly into his body. These arrows pierce deep into his chest and arms, sending painful electric currents coursing through his veins. As dawn breaks, his skin begins to smolder and burn intensely. The female leader watches with cold curiosity, wondering if the agony is unbearable for him. She smugly reminds her that the Hellfire's torment will be double the pain he experiences now. The one-armed woman dismisses the suffering, mocking it as trivial and belittling humans as insignificant. The female leader warns her not to underestimate humanity's resilience. She ruthlessly crushes the one-armed woman's wrist beneath her foot, snapping the bones audibly. The injured attacker screams out in acute agony. The commanding lady scolds her, questioning her senseless words and calling her a half-wit. She receives a chilling message that she will be the instrument of death for herself today, and soon her friends will also meet their demise by her hands. In that instant, she ponders the fate of her teammates and wonders what actions they are taking alongside our protagonist. They relay the startling news that he remains standing despite being struck by that powerful attack. She offers no further comment beyond that revelation. She questions why he appears entirely unaffected under the relentless blaze of the sun. The deadly woman assassin concludes this might be her only chance to escape from the perilous scene. Without hesitation, she leaps into action and flees the area. The female leader wonders if he has exhausted his remaining blood supply. Regardless, she remains baffled by how he withstands the intense heat beneath the sun. One of her gunmen questions why this relentless adversary hasn't succumbed despite immediate pursuit. Suddenly, our hero springs forward, launching a surprise attack against one of the gunmen. However, the female boss swiftly retaliates, severing his arm with a precise slash of her sword. Recognizing his heightened danger, she commands her team to retreat from the encounter. She strikes again, swinging her sword fiercely at him. He blocks her attack effortlessly with his arm. She marvels at his resilience as she witnesses his severed arm regenerating before her eyes. He throws a punch her way, but narrowly misses its mark. Surprised yet relieved, she realizes it was fortunate she hadn't eliminated him sooner. At that moment, she channels magical energy, delivering a fiery punch that scorches through his chest. He crashes to the ground, landing far from their position. She wonders what makes this man so extraordinary and speculates where he has been hiding, unnoticed until now. Thick smoke envelops the surroundings, obscuring the scene in a dense haze. Amidst the smoke, she catches sight of him calmly drinking blood from the neck of the director. She is taken aback to witness him sucking blood in the midst of battle. After feeding, his strength surges, and he fixes her with a glare filled with intense fury. He then erupts into a deafening roar. The female commander declares that his time must end here and now. Preparing for one final strike, she grips her sword firmly with both hands as flames ignite along its blade. Charging fiercely toward him, she suddenly notices him collapse, overcome by sudden weakness. As he falls, the floor beneath him cracks, leaving her puzzled about the cause. Meanwhile, the protagonist hears someone urgently calling his name, Team Leader Sayok, over and over. He slowly opens his eyes, trying to place the familiar voice. His gaze lands on the person, his commanding officer. The commander asks if Team Leader Sayok is awake and responsive. She notices the lady boss standing nearby, intently watching him. Sayok inquires about the identity of the enigmatic lady boss. He then realizes he is chained to a pillar and questions his current predicament. The lady boss commands Sayok to listen to her words carefully. After evaluating his actions, they have resolved to execute him because he is a vampire. Stunned, he stares at the lady boss, bewildered by her accusation. He wonders aloud why she would brand him a vampire. Mockingly, he tells her not to be ridiculous, insisting such creatures don't exist. She approaches, cups his face in her hands, questioning if she truly understands what he is. He senses what she's about to do. Then she bites her own finger sharply, drawing a few drops of blood from the wound. Upon catching sight of the blood, an intense thirst suddenly overwhelms him. His teeth elongate, and his veins begin to pulse fiercely with newfound energy. His eyes blaze red as he fixates intently on the single drop of blood. Obsessed with the desire to drink that blood, he locks onto her with a wild, uncontrollable stare. At that precise moment, she challenges him, asking if he finally believes what he's witnessing. Our protagonist, still bewildered, questions what on earth has just transpired. The commander admits he struggles to believe it himself, yet the evidence makes it undeniable. He also obtained a video capturing the rampage on the ship, each body exactly as the witness had described. Sayok questions her, incredulous, asking if she truly claims he was the one behind it. The lady boss explains that dispatching a removal mission without understanding who or what Anna really is reckless, especially with these impulsive agents. Sayok wonders aloud whether they have uncovered Anna's vampire nature, information even the National Intelligence Service hasn't discovered. The lady boss confirms unequivocally, hunting vampires falls solely under the jurisdiction of her Vatican task force. She rests her foot on his chest and tells him that by protocol he should have been eliminated too, but she'll offer him a rare chance to serve as her loyal subordinate. Sayok's expression reveals his astonishment at her unexpected proposal. She continues, mentioning that from what she's gathered, they share a common enemy. So rather than exhausting their forces against one another, they should unite to eliminate Anna together. Meanwhile, in a towering multi-level building elsewhere, Snow White remarks on how some factions are overtaking the cartel and absorbing the mafia, yet no one seems capable of exterminating even a single lowly pest. Grabbing the woman attacker firmly by the neck, she listens as the attacker desperately pleads for mercy, apologizing profusely. Snow White had already severed her body into multiple pieces. Snow White admits that, as anticipated, she should never have trusted her with it. Then she removes her mask, plants a kiss on her lips, and transfers some of her blood into her mouth. Upon receiving the blood, her body begins to regenerate and fully restores itself within moments. Now kneeling before Snow White, she is warned that this is her final opportunity and commanded to bring her what's requested. The woman who had attacked then exits the building. As she walks down the street, another girl observes her silently from a rooftop above. Perched atop the roof, she crouches gracefully like a cat. Our protagonist rides in a car alongside the formidable lady boss and their driver. He contemplates her ultimatum: either perish by her hands as a vampire or become her loyal servant, working with her to eliminate Anna. He recalls his commander's caution to stay vigilant, knowing that regardless of the slain agent's allegiance to the director's faction, they will inevitably come after him too. His facial expression reveals everything he's feeling. The lady boss questions whether it's difficult for him to accept that he's now a vampire. Sayak demands to know why she brought him here in the first place. She explains that without her intervention, every faction would have targeted him, and proposes that joining forces for revenge is the better path. The hero then asks if he can truly place his trust in her. Without a moment's hesitation, she replies that he absolutely should not. For now, the enemy of her enemy becomes her ally, and that must suffice. She informs him that they have arrived at the squad's central headquarters, known as the Sanctum. He inquires if it's simply a cathedral, to which she confirms with a nod. He comments that this makes the setting feel more authentic and natural. Still gazing at the building, he wonders whether they were supposed to return here. She clarifies that this isn't their actual destination. Furthermore, since the sanctum is shielded by sacred artifacts, he is prohibited from entering. In that moment, he contemplates what the next step will be. She explains that even if he officially joins the squad now, he would still be considered prey by Anna. As a result, she has designated him as a special case and will personally oversee his management. In other words, he will have to live under her supervision. At that moment, the female leader informs him that this is a hotel affiliated with the squad, providing a secure location that leaves no traces behind. Right then, she realizes they haven't even exchanged proper introductions yet. She reveals that she is a member of the Vatican's secret squad and that her name is Myra. Our protagonist introduces himself as Kim Soyak. Curious, Myra assumes he has many questions and invites him to ask anything he wishes. He expresses his curiosity about vampires. She asks if he has accepted this reality, then begins to explain. As long as vampires continue to consume human blood, they remain immortal and will never die. They possess physical abilities that far exceed those of ordinary humans. Some vampires also wield unique powers, most of which originate from the blood of ancient vampires. Currently, Anna is the sole surviving ancient vampire. Suddenly, Sayak recalls the moment he sank his teeth into Anna's neck, tasting her blood as it entered his mouth. He seeks answers from Myra about the methods they use to kill vampires. She explains that vampires perish when exposed to sunlight, as it burns them to death. Except for him, that's likely the reason Anna is specifically targeting him. However, by leveraging this unique trait, they can devise a strategy to confront Anna on their terms. To make that happen, he must increase his strength, and she is ready to assist him in doing so. She asks if he fully grasps the reason she brought him here. He replies with certainty, acknowledging that she fears him and that, without the sun's restraint, he could become the most dangerous vampire. Leaving him unchecked poses a significant threat, yet eliminating him would mean losing immense potential. Therefore, the plan is to keep him under surveillance as a public enemy and remove him only if he proves too dangerous. She believes she has nothing to lose. She smiles, impressed, wondering if he truly earned his status as a top agent for no reason. After all, he remains a vampire, and embracing that is simply part of his role within the squad. She continues, emphasizing that their ultimate goal is to eliminate Anna, and strengthening him is key to that mission. She encourages him to voice any concerns openly at any time. Sayak responds by revealing he has died multiple times already. He states that as long as he can kill Anna, nothing else matters to him. He intends to endure whatever it takes. The girl suspects he has bared his true motives without reservation, yet his willingness to cooperate suggests his objective is driven solely by vengeance. Ultimately, she is captivated by his daring nature and looks forward to the challenge of taming his wild spirit. At last, she signals that introductions are over and it's time to eat, presenting her neck invitingly for him to bite. The protagonist is left wondering about the true intention behind her sudden offer to bite her neck. She mocks him, pointing out that whether he accepts it or not, he's a vampire too. While bloodlessness usually debilitates him, his frantic search for blood is unprecedented, sparking her curiosity about whether he would also resist harming innocents. He rises from his chair and slowly approaches her with determined steps. Myra extends her neck again, complaining of a cramp and urging him to hurry and drink. After a moment of hesitation, he finally sinks his teeth into her neck and begins drawing her blood. His eyes glow a vivid red, signaling a transformation within. She watches intently, wondering if the blood is taking effect, and repeatedly encourages him to drink deeper and more often. Willingly, she offers herself completely, inviting him to consume every drop of her blood. Suddenly, he recalls Anna's earlier comment describing him as intriguingly unique. With the memory fresh, he pulls away abruptly, releasing Myra and ceasing to feed. She moves directly to her bed, lying down briefly to recover. Sayak reflects on whether this overwhelming craving for blood is an inherent vampire instinct. She advises him that starting tomorrow, his schedule will be demanding, so he should rest quickly tonight. She warns him sharply that any neglect or laziness will result in dire consequences. She will have no hesitation in ending him. He looks at her intently and asks, curious and uncertain, will he be forced to drink blood like this every single day? All of this serves his quest for vengeance. Although his body has turned vampire, his heart remains steadfastly human. He recalls the tragic fate of his two brothers, who were slain by Snow White. Sayak is certain that he will send that despicable villain straight to hell. Our hero lies down beside Myra, and together they drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. Myra awakens, puzzled to find him lying so close to her side. She wonders quietly to herself why he has chosen to lie right beside her. He notices another room directly across from him and realizes he never mentioned there was a bed there. Despite the circumstances, she finds it unbelievable that he is lying so intimately close to her. As a devout saint, sharing a bed with a man feels somewhat inappropriate to her. She reflects with surprise, realizing she never knew he could be this way. Caught off guard, she fixates on him, suspecting him of lecherous intentions and lustful thoughts. Then, closing her eyes, she silently urges herself to calm her restless mind. At last, she begins to pray earnestly, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, lead us not into temptation." Suddenly, his hand rests gently on her stomach, sending a tremor of fear through her. She struggles to restrain her feelings, anxiously anticipating what might come next. Later that day, inside the staff room, Sayak and Myra stand face to face as she begins explaining the method to kill a vampire. Knowing that ordinary weapons are useless against vampires, she reveals there are only two effective ways to destroy them: exposure to sunlight, and contact with silver, which causes burning pain upon touch. Using silver weapons to decapitate or pierce a vampire's heart delivers a fatal blow that ensures their demise. She now reminds him that the female assailant had survived back then. Besides that, vampires are indestructible, and she asks if he has any questions before they start the training. He recalls that she mentioned her name is Myra and apologizes for his sleep-talking incident the previous night. Suddenly, she bursts into anger and throws a punch straight at him. He blocks her punch with both hands, puzzled about what she's trying to accomplish. Furious, she warns him to stop wasting time and insists he should have mastered the basics. They must begin immediately. What he really needs is hands-on combat experience against non-human foes, gained through upcoming duels. As a Special Forces operative, he will strengthen his skills, while simultaneously boosting his vampire abilities through blood consumption. Once he acknowledges this, Myra lunges at him again, punches flying, commanding him to fall in line. He effortlessly stops her attack, confident that no human can surpass a vampire's strength. This time, he retaliates by throwing a punch at her. She swiftly dodges his attack with ease, but now she lands a quick, precise punch squarely on his chin. Without pausing, she continues to barrage him with punches, eventually knocking him to the ground. She tells him that no matter how tough the journey, she is prepared to persevere. Rising up, he declares that he has survived even the harshest challenges because he is a Black Ops agent. They continue their rigorous training, and after several months, he shows clear improvement and begins to take form, though he still has a long way to go. Suddenly, an agent steps into the room. Myra is suddenly curious and asks what has caused the abrupt change. The agent apologizes for the disruption during her busy moment, but insists that she must head to the sanctum immediately. She wonders aloud what urgent reason there could be for the summons to the sanctum. She assures him she understands the urgency, promises to prepare without delay, and informs him she'll return shortly, instructing him to remain in place. He responds affirmatively, acknowledging her message without hesitation. Now en route to the sanctum, she contemplates the reason behind such a direct call. She vents her confusion to her officer, who admits he lacks access to any additional details. She suspects she may have a rough idea of the entity capable of summoning her so urgently. As a car pulls up, she informs her companion that this must be the arrival they've been expecting. The vehicle is a sleek black Mercedes-Benz from which the visitors step out. Perched like a cat atop a tall building, a mysterious girl watches their vehicle intently. After scrutinizing the car briefly, she nods knowingly, convinced she has identified her targets. Her eyes glow with an electric intensity as she calls out the name Kim So-yuk. Myra tells her colleague that only one entity could summon her in such a manner, because she is Bishop Myra. Now curious, she inquires with a superior officer about the reason for his presence at the sanctum, nodding he comes as an envoy straight from the Vatican. The visitor expresses honor in meeting her and thanks her for her diligent efforts, emphasizing that his superiors are always grateful for her work. He is eager to bypass the formal introductions and address the matter directly. He demands to know whether she has brought a vampire along. She is taken aback to discover they are already aware of the situation. Within the vast interior of a grand hotel building, numerous guests fill the lobby seating area. The receptionist greets a newcomer intent on checking in, requesting his identification and inquiring about the size of his group. The man reveals they comprise a sizable party of 200, leaving the receptionist visibly astonished by the number. Without warning, he draws a knife and fatally stabs the man. Instantly, panic erupts among the crowd in the lobby as everyone scrambles to escape. The lead security officer commands his team, declaring he will handle the threat personally while instructing 2 guards to oversee civilian evacuation and maintain communication with the control room. Someone alerts the team leader with a voice wishing him luck in managing the situation. Startled by the voice, he turns around to identify its source. He notices 2 sleek black cars speeding directly toward the hotel's entrance gate. These vehicles crash through the glass doors, invading the hotel lobby. Dozens of Yakuza members emerge from the cars, each brandishing large knives. Only 3 agents stand between themselves and the overwhelming number of Yakuza. The agents confront the intruders, angrily challenging these Yakuza villains for their audacity in invading the premises. The leader swiftly plunges a knife deep into one Yakuza member's chest. He then slashes a wide gash across the attacker. To his shock, the wound rapidly regenerates, healing itself almost instantly. With one swift slash of his blade, the Yakuza mercilessly ends him. The Yakuza accuses him, claiming that seeking refuge in a place like this and colluding with the Vatican's filth is a profound betrayal of their brotherhood. Their search is for Sayok, and their leader assures them that if he's responsible for the incident, he must be nearby. Since all these Yakuza are vampires, finding him shouldn't pose a problem. The Lady Yakuza commands her men decisively, ordering them to bring him before her. Without hesitation, the entire Yakuza group bolts toward the rooms with urgency. She confers with a vampire girl, praising her relentless efforts and instructing her to demolish the control room before rejoining her. The vampire girl Coco, the squad leader of the Nanyama Yakuza, wonderingly asks when they'll feast to their fill once this mission is over. Upon receiving confirmation, she brightens with enthusiasm and swiftly makes her way toward the control room. Remarkably, Coco moves with feline grace, prowling on all 4s like a stealthy cat. As the Lady Yakuza leader ascends in the elevator, her thoughts drift to Myra. She recalls that Myra has also abandoned her post, leaving only inexperienced rookies behind. To prevent failure, the Lady Yakuza strategically brought along seasoned subordinates well-versed in this type of operation. But shock overwhelms her when she reaches the 18th floor and finds all of her men slaughtered. Confounded by their swift defeat, she wonders whether a high-ranking bishop might be responsible for this setback. Just as she is lost in thought, a voice suddenly calls out to her, breaking the silence with a familiar phrase, "It's been a long time." Turning around, she's taken aback to find Sayok standing there, unexpected yet unmistakable. He asks if she has been searching for him, breaking the moment with his calm inquiry. Meanwhile, the man inside the church questions Myra, wondering why she has brought a vampire into the Vatican's ranks. He assures Myra that he trusts her judgment and plans to review the details at the upcoming Bishop's Council, but hopes she fully grasps the gravity of her decision. She responds with unwavering confidence and affirmation. She explains that after 3 months of vigilant observation, no threat indicators emerged, and the vampire has meticulously completed the Vatican's rigorous training program. She admits that whether he will lead them to salvation or disaster remains uncertain, yet she has witnessed enough to believe in his potential. Inside the hotel, Sayok confides to the Lady Yakuza that finding her brings him immense relief. He reveals that he, too, has been searching for her relentlessly. He declares his intent to resolve the confrontation with the vampire, whose red eyes blaze with radiant light once and for all today. Enraged, the Lady Yakuza snaps that this is madness, draws her sword, and launches an aggressive attack. To her astonishment, he effortlessly parries her strikes, demonstrating strength far beyond her expectations. Intrigued, she wonders what ordeals or training have forged him into such a formidable warrior. Sayok warns her that he will remember her words exactly as spoken, and that she has long benefited from his mercy. Suddenly, he seizes her by the throat with a firm grip. He effortlessly hurls her to the ground and positions himself over her, asserting dominance. He coldly informs her that this is where her fate ends. Terrified, she freezes as his knife halts mere inches from her eye, compelling her to question why the assault suddenly ceased. Her body trembles uncontrollably, motionless, as she tries to comprehend the strange paralysis overwhelming her. Without warning, a woman enters, flanked by 2 enormous snakes, asking if the man before her is Suyak. In fact, this is Katerina, squad leader 5 of the Nanyama Yakuza. He wonders if the woman's presence reveals a unique power at play. The Lady Yakuza commands Katerina to quickly subdue him without hesitation. Unruffled, Katarina dismisses the urgency, telling her to relax and insisting she doesn't need orders. As one of her snakes slithers toward our hero, Katarina reveals she intended to intervene all along. Suddenly, one snake coils tightly around the Lady Yakuza, leaving her visibly terrified. Our hero questions whether Katarina's aim is to protect the Lady Yakuza. Meanwhile, the Lady Yakuza is baffled by Katarina's unexpected actions. Katarina calmly explains she acted simply because she chose to. She scoffs, calling him an indestructible plaything. Reflecting on the countless young men she's slain, Katarina contemplates how, regardless of their looks, all men inevitably either perish or lose their allure. She admits she always longed for a male vampire and never expected to encounter one so soon, then orders Su-yak to approach her. To his shock, Su-yak notices his body moving involuntarily, suspecting a form of mind control. Katarina forces him to grasp her chest and commands him to submit as her eternal servant. From that moment forward, he obeys her will without resistance, forever bound to her control. The Lady Yakuza harshly labels Katarina a prostitute, warning her that Lady Anna would never tolerate such behavior. Katarina replies that she already has and insists that once they secure Sayak, it won't matter. She also reveals that Lady Anna has commanded the elimination of both her and her worthless companion. The Lady Yakuza feels a deep sadness upon hearing this grim news. Her distress stems from the fact that she and Lady Anna share a romantic bond. At this very moment, both the Lady Yakuza and Su-yak are ensnared in Katarina's deadly serpent grip. Katarina wonders if she's fainted and how such a seemingly simple matter has dragged on for months. She recalls enduring for so long with her feeble skills and immense effort, bidding a final farewell to the Lady Yakuza. All the while, her snake prepares to consume the Lady Yakuza alive. Suddenly, Coco bursts into the room. She informs the Lady Yakuza that everything has been taken care of. Seeing Ayaka in such a state, Coco's heart fills with sorrow and she asks what happened. Katarina points accusingly at Sayak, declaring that he is the one responsible. Innocent Coco's anger flares, and she immediately lashes out at him. Our hero feels overwhelmed, believing that the number of adversaries keeps rising and that handling this woman alone is exhausting. Katarina assures him there's no need to worry since they've secured Sayak and can return safely to Lady Anna. Still trusting and naive, Coco wonders aloud if Sayak really was the one who hurt Ayaka. Katarina confirms with a grim nod that he is indeed responsible. Although Coco's anger intensifies toward him, she also detects the scent of Katarina's poison on Ayaka. At this revelation, Katarina finds herself somewhat taken aback. In a dim jail cell, a very young girl tearfully voices her fear and longing to return home, desperately calling out for her mother. A very young Coco warmly introduces herself to the child, eager to learn her name. Ayaka recalls the very first time she encountered Coco. At this moment, Ayaka asks Sayak if he's awake and wonders whether she's still able to move. He isn't surprised to learn she remains immobilized. Curious about whether ultra-speed recovery truly makes a difference, she inquires about Coco. He grimly warns her that the situation is dire. Fear grips her upon hearing that Coco has engaged Kartina's snakes in combat and is holding her own. Unfortunately, their compatibility is poor because of the snake's venom. They can't even approach that vile woman, and their speed is faltering as exhaustion sets in. Ayaka warns him that if things continue like this, Coco will die, and they must rescue her immediately. He retorts that she would only be a liability given her condition. Enraged, Ayaka calls him a jerk. At this point, he asks Ayaka to share information about that treacherous snake woman, suggesting that if she and her friend join forces with him, they might prevail. Ayaka wonders if he truly wants to ally with them. After all, he just tried to kill her, but she recognizes that, for now, joining forces is their best chance. Still, she warns him against being foolish and questions how she could possibly trust him. Sayak asks what her next move will be. Suddenly, he draws his knife, and Ayaka is instantly overcome with fear. Meanwhile, Katrina reflects that she's exerting more power than anticipated, demanding too much of her blood, especially for this unwitting fool. She also finds herself questioning how she hasn't been poisoned yet, despite everything. There's absolutely no chance this fool can cleanse her of the toxin. Her naivety is simply overwhelming. While Coco continues to fend off Katrina's snake attacks, Katrina is stunned to realize that Coco's secret is merely holding her breath the entire time. At last, Coco launches her counterattack, sharply inhales and then forcefully hurls Katrina out through the window. Afterward, Coco resumes breathing, confessing that if the battle had dragged on any longer, she would have surely perished. She turns to Ayaka, checking if she's all right and asking where she is. Eventually, Coco manages to locate her. Yet despite all her efforts, she collapses onto the ground in exhaustion. She becomes alarmed upon spotting a tiny snake biting her leg, sensing the venom rapidly spreading through her veins. For a moment, she wonders whether she's been underestimating her adversary far too much. Suddenly, Katrina re-enters through the shattered window, tauntingly asking if Coco just tried to say something. Now that they're face to face, Katrina finds the situation thrilling and decides to ensure that Coco and the friend she's desperately searching for remain inseparably bound forever. Transforming into a colossal snake, she proclaims that Coco will soon reside within the belly of her monstrous serpent. Just as the monstrous snake prepares to engulf Coco completely, Ayaka suddenly appears, swiftly severing the snake's head. Coco is overwhelmed with immense relief and joy upon seeing Ayaka again. Katrina is stunned to watch Ayaka detoxify herself, knowing that only the two of them possess the unique ability to neutralize the poison. She is left wondering how Ayaka manages such a feat. Ayaka recalls the moment she asked Sayak if he wanted to join forces, questioning how she could trust someone who had just tried to kill her. He responds calmly that if she truly feels that way, then there's nothing more he can do to change it. Without hesitation, he slices his own hand with his knife. Ayaka watches, puzzled, unsure of his intentions at that moment. Sayak explains that he once heard the phrase, "The enemy of my enemy is my ally," and for now, that reasoning must suffice. He acknowledges her anger and sense of betrayal, understanding that after giving everything and nearly losing a friend, her fury is justified. At that point, Sayak urges her to drink his blood. Suddenly, Ayaka recalls a childhood memory of Coco extending a hand in friendship. In that moment, Sayak asks if she has ever heard the saying that the most dangerous person is one who has nothing left to lose. Facing such a person, their confrontation becomes inevitable. When Katrina falls, Ayaka and Sayak stand united. An agent rushes toward Myra, urgency etched on their face. He informs her of a critical and alarming development. A large force of vampires has invaded the hotel. Myra is taken aback, stunned by the news. Sayak charges at the snakes, clutching a knife tightly in his hands. Ayaka warns him that she can transform her body into a snake and command other serpents at will. She cautions that if he is bitten by her snakes or inhales the venomous mist, dire consequences will follow. His body would become paralyzed, rigid, and completely vulnerable to control. Luckily, the venomous mist's effects are temporary, but they must quickly close the distance before the opportunity slips away. Our hero relentlessly decapitates the snakes, but their numbers multiply endlessly, overwhelming her efforts. One snake seizes his silver knife in its mouth, leaving him to wonder if it intends to wrest the weapon away from him. A swarm of snakes coils around him menacingly, poised to strike. Suddenly, Ayaka leaps into the fray, cutting down snakes with her sword. She urges him to regain his composure, warning that losing the silver knife alone won't be his undoing. She also reveals that she's using her powers by draining blood, preventing the snakes from multiplying without end. However, this method will sap his energy, though she vows to handle the snakes somehow. Meanwhile, he must hurry to assist Coco without delay. He approaches Coco, informing her that they are now temporary allies. He explains that once he detoxifies her blood, she will need to support both him and their mutual friend. He transfers some of his blood into her mouth, emphasizing that this is the sole path to their survival. The blood revitalizes her, infusing her with renewed vigor and strength. Suddenly, she springs to her feet with newfound energy. She pushes our hero down and settles on him playfully, akin to a loyal dog. Sayak wonders if she's under some control, confident that his detoxification should have prevented that. She informs Ayaka that she has Sayak firmly in her grasp. Ayaka replies that he is no longer their enemy, emphasizing that together they must eliminate Katrina. Upon hearing this, Coco casts a brief, intense glance at Sayak. Then, like a cat stalking prey, she swiftly charges toward the snakes. Katrina muses that using these two girls to locate Sayak was a brilliantly executed plan. She had anticipated that breaking down the poison and reusing it after detoxification would be effective. Her resolve is unwavering. She is determined to claim ownership of Sayak. Meanwhile, Sayak battles her snakes fiercely while directing the girls to press forward as they close in on Katrina. All they need now is to summon just a little more strength and determination. He urgently warns that the poisonous mist is rapidly encroaching. Everyone holds their breath, snapping together to stay close and steady. Ayaka reassures them that the mist will soon dissipate and explains the true purpose behind the smoke screen. Before she can finish, Sayak interrupts, guessing that someone plans to take out one of their own. Ayaka responds, suggesting the likely target, apart from herself, is either the swift Ayaka or perhaps another fighter who relies on her support. Or it could be someone who fights independently but depends heavily on Ayaka's assistance. Suddenly, Katrina materializes directly in front of Coco. She confronts Coco, accusing her of daring to touch her and threatening to kill her first. In a swift attack, her snakes strike Ayaka from every angle. Coco's concern for Ayaka grows as the assault intensifies. Our hero reveals he anticipated this move and knows that if Katrina aims for Coco, one of them is destined to be struck. He urges her to hurry, promising to share his blood before the attacker arrives, but she insists that such a precaution isn't necessary. He presses the urgency of time, insisting she act quickly. Together, our hero and Coco watch helplessly as Ayaka endures relentless snake bites across her body. Suddenly, a knife plunges into her chest. Ayaka's mind drifts back to her childhood. She recalls her mother apologizing as she prepared to obey a man's commands from that moment onward. Her mother had sold her into the drug trade. That man introduced her to a group of new acquaintances. In truth, it was a crimson-colored medicine. By injecting that red medicine, he instructed her to form a close bond with Red. Throughout the process, she endured intense pain. The daily medication experiments were relentless and excruciating. As a result of these drugs, everyone began to behave increasingly strangely. One after another, they all succumbed, plunging the situation into terrifying despair. At one point, she wished it would be better if she simply froze to death right there. While in tears, she encountered Coco behind bars in the jail. She recalled how remarkable Coco was, the only person who could smile even amid such torment. Ayaka found herself laughing alongside Coco. Each day felt like a descent into hell. Yet they endured by leaning on one another, cherishing even fleeting moments of happiness. One day, the doctor ordered his staff to segregate the subjects based on their medication dosage. He directed that the control group be sent to the left, while the experimental group was assigned to the right. Consequently, they were forcibly separated. She remembered the heart-wrenching moment when they cried, calling out each other's names from opposite sides. Ayaka prepared to hand back her jacket, but Ayaka urged her to keep it, promising she would come back to find her without fail. Hearing this, Coco's heart swelled with joy. Several years later, Ayaka was transferred to share Coco's cell. At last, she was reunited with Coco, overwhelmed with happiness to see her alive. Ayaka confided in Coco, admitting she once feared they would never meet again. At that moment, Coco failed to recognize Ayaka when she inquired about her identity. Ayaka responded by telling her that she was someone who simply wanted to be her friend. Overjoyed by Ayaka's rescue, Coco promised to protect her, and together they managed to escape that nightmare. However, they soon confronted a grave challenge. Ayaka was physically fragile, while Coco struggled with mental instability. Together, they devised a plan, questioning what set them apart from humans and whether they deserved to survive, at times even contemplating ending their own lives. But escaping one torment only meant stepping into another, as a new hell awaited them beyond. Determined to prove herself, Ayaka began rigorous sword training, believing she was meant to die and fearing disposal if she failed to meet expectations. Yet she realized that as long as she lived alongside Coco, she couldn't simply leave everything to her. Couldn't she even manage to catch a single insect? This was her final opportunity, and the humiliation she endured was unbearable. She recalled the moment Sayak fed her his blood to save her life. She vividly remembered how Lady Anna tore her apart to disgrace her, the sting of betrayal after giving her all, and the agony of losing a close friend. When Sayak extended his blood to her, offering a chance to survive together and escape, a flicker of hope ignited within her. For the first time, someone truly understood her, and ironically, that someone was her enemy, Sayak. To survive, she had soiled her hands countless times, grappling with the knowledge of what was right yet unable to act accordingly. Despite her awareness, she found herself powerless to change her fate. But if it was him, at this crucial moment, she urgently wants Sayak to hear her out completely. She attempts to speak first, gathering her thoughts. Suddenly, she pulls him into a tight embrace and kisses him deeply, while her body begins to shatter and disintegrate. With a soft voice, she expresses her heartfelt gratitude to Sayak. In this tender moment, she comforts Coco, gently reassuring her not to shed any tears. She fondly recalls all the cherished memories shared with Coco, promising they will remain inseparable forever. As she utters these words, her form begins to dissolve into countless tiny fragments. In just moments, she vanishes entirely, leaving nothing behind. Coco sobs uncontrollably, weeping like a heartbroken child. She sits beside the scattered remains of Ayaka's clothes, overwhelmed by grief. Coco repeatedly calls out Ayaka's name through her tears, desperate and heartbroken. With a smirk, Katrina mocks Ayaka's fate, noting how she dedicated her life to supporting her friend but ultimately perished because of her. She taunts that all resistance is futile and commands Coco to follow her to Anna, where she will be treated with kindness. Obviously, unlike those others, she insists. Sayak responds that he understands, leaving Katrina visibly surprised by his calm acceptance. He completes his thought, reaffirming his comprehension of Ayaka and emphasizing his resolve to do what must be done. Irritated, Katrina wonders aloud if she's simply talking to herself, as nobody seems to be paying attention. Suddenly, Coco demands fiercely that Katrina restore Ayaka, shouting her plea with raw emotion. Without warning, she launches herself at Katrina with extraordinary speed. Coco leaps high into the air and crashes back down, unleashing a dazzling burst of radiant light upon impact. Both Katrina and Sayak are taken aback by what they see. They exchange glances, still trying to comprehend the sudden turn of events. Soon, they realize that the newcomers are members of the Vatican. Among the group, Myra makes an unexpected appearance. Soyak reassures Myra that Coco is not one of their enemies and that they are on the same side. Suddenly, Soyak senses a bullet, narrowly missing his head, and questions why he's being targeted. A woman remarks on the overwhelming number of vampires and tells him there's no need to worry. She vows to cleanse every single one of them. Her attack radiates divine energy, and even her eyes glow with the power of the Holy Cross. She tells him he must be brave to dare assault a hotel owned by the Vatican squad. Katrina retorts, calling her the brave one for summoning so many puppets to her aid. She begins releasing a venomous substance into the surrounding air. Sayak urgently warns everyone to hold their breath, explaining that inhaling it leads to paralysis or enslavement. Yet the woman confidently approaches the venom cloud, leaving the hero to wonder how she intends to counter it. She conjures a magical barrier that stands firm before the advancing snake. The snake is unable to penetrate this protective wall. Delighted by this success, the woman beams with satisfaction. She then hurls a glowing magical sphere at the serpent, severing its head decisively. Coco and Sayak hold their breath, astonished by her effortless command over the snakes. At this juncture, the woman turns to them and inquires what comes next, piquing their curiosity about her true strength. Their hero notices that the snake-like creature known as Jerk has vanished. There are no poisonous clouds present, except for the venomous serpent's head. The lady feels sorrowful, uncertain about Katrina's whereabouts. She questions her team members about Katrina's possible location. They confess their ignorance, while one member gently reassures her. The Lady Bishop weeps over the serpent's severed head, and Su-Yak comforts her, explaining that it was purposely cut off. He suggests that Katrina might be concealed and have escaped within the serpent's head. Realizing this, she expresses her gratitude toward him. Our hero urges an immediate pursuit to catch up with her. The Lady Bishop points sharply at Coco and Su-Yak, commanding her team to prioritize firing upon them. Without hesitation, Su-Yak grabs Coco and flees as the team opens fire on them. She tells Su-Yak that she will ensure his departure is painless, acknowledging his nature as a good vampire. Quickly taking cover behind a wall with Coco, our hero declares he is not an enemy and allies himself with Myra. The Lady Bishop, poised to strike, dismisses his claim, asserting the Vatican refuses to negotiate with vampires and finds his association with Sister Myra absurd. She unleashes a powerful magical attack against them. Su-Yak realizes this revelation hasn't reached the Vatican yet and contemplates how to prevent conflict. To convince her, Su-Yak references room number 1701. Intrigued, the lady wonders about the significance of this room, recognizing it as the place where she and Myra reside. Upon hearing this, she lowers her weapon and ceases her attack. She is utterly stunned to discover that Myra is living with a man. At this moment, her curiosity piques as she wants to know how long and since when they've been cohabiting. Sayak reveals to her that Myra is wearing black lingerie today. The Lady Bishop is visibly shaken and astonished upon hearing this news. Meanwhile, a car pulls up right in front of the hotel entrance. Myra steps out of the vehicle. She wonders why her two agents' cars are parked here, only to realize they have arrived on a mission related to the vampires. Without hesitation, she dashes into the building. As she runs, she curses the vampires for exploiting her absence, determined that if she allows them to take Sayak, everything will be lost. Upon entering, she urgently questions Sayak whether he heard about the vampire's arrival and demands to know what's happening right now. After stepping into the hall, she spots Sayak and Coco standing to one side. The Lady Bishop stands near them, clearly bewildered, repeatedly muttering that this situation is utterly absurd. Myra probes to understand what she means. They are gathered in room number 1701. She reports that the Yakuza and 3 vampire leaders stormed the room. During the skirmish, one leader was killed, another escaped, and the third was captured. Myra acknowledges they narrowly escaped disaster, emphasizing that had Sayak fallen into Anna's clutches, the consequences would have been catastrophic. He explains that their adversaries had precisely timed her absence and invaded this location, proving their intelligence network is formidable, and this hotel no longer offers any security. Myra acknowledges that they definitely need to relocate and insists they must stay inseparable without a single moment apart. At this moment, Myra and our hero lock eyes, and that intense gaze causes her to blush and smile shyly. Sayak refers to the young man who nearly lost his life. Having faced a single vampire initially, he now confronts 3 simultaneously, and yet he remains alive. This training surpasses normal human limits of strength and speed. It is evident that he has grown more powerful through the continuous consumption of blood. Myra confirms that although he may be somewhat slow now, if he keeps gaining strength like this, he will ultimately be capable of killing Anna. From this point forward, he must not abandon his post recklessly under any circumstances. Myra lashes out at him, questioning whether he would ignore a higher UPS summons. he counters by saying he has urgent information she needs to hear. Her curiosity is piqued, eager to learn what he has discovered. He reveals that, as a vampire, he understands how he can attain the same speed and strength as Anna. She is stunned upon hearing this revelation. He explains that the 7th squad leader of the Nanyama Yakuza, Ayaka, entrusted him with this knowledge. She imparted this crucial information to him just moments before her death. Since a vampire grows stronger the more blood it consumes, he realizes that although his current approach increases his strength, it still won't be sufficient to defeat Anna. However, if the blood in question is that of a vampire, the situation changes entirely. By drinking a vampire's blood, he can absorb the powers they've amassed and, under certain conditions, even unlock new abilities. Myra remains skeptical because the trustworthiness of the information is uncertain, and the specific requirements to gain these powers remain vague. Despite the doubts, Sayaka is resolute, convinced that experimenting with this is unquestionably worthwhile. After actually ingesting Ayaka's blood, he noticed that bullets seemed to decelerate as they approached him. For a brief moment, he was able to tap into a new ability he had never accessed before. It is also said that Anna commands 7 vampires under her authority. At this stage, he fully understands that he must drink the blood of every vampire serving under Anna. Myra grasps this strategy and speculates that bringing Coco was intentional, as Coco is another of Anna's vampires and securing her allegiance could prove advantageous. Coco's temper begins to flare up. While the Lady Bishop encourages Coco to voice her thoughts freely, Sayaka explains that Coco harbors resentment towards Anna for killing her friend, suggesting she might become an ally. Myra finds Sayaka's attitude irritating and questions if that poses a problem. She then reveals that tensions are high because the Bishop's Council meeting is imminent. He expresses curiosity about the upcoming Bishop's Council. She clarifies that this gathering convenes the Vatican's bishops, who primarily discuss the evolving situation concerning Anna's forces. Yet the true focus of this meeting is Sayaka himself. Since his induction into the vampire hunting group, some members have expressed displeasure. However, he need not worry, as her role ensures his position remains relatively secure. As he explained, she brought him here specifically to keep a close watch over him. At this stage, she has begun to place a measure of trust in him. She starts to unbutton her shirt, acknowledging his hard work with a meaningful gesture. Offering her neck as a token of appreciation, she invites him to feed as a reward for his efforts. The Lady Bishop overhears their exchange and is visibly taken aback. Stationed outside the room, the Lady Bishop struggles to believe what she has just heard, her anger mounting. Sayaka questions her, pointing out that she offers this to him daily, and asks what she meant by calling it a reward. Pondering outside the door, the Lady Bishop wonders how she could be providing that to him every single day. Myra remarks that he has evolved since their first encounter. Initially, he struggled to conceal his excitement. Now, however, he approaches it with a relaxed composure and asks her to alert him if it becomes overwhelming. Outside, the Lady Bishop trembles with fear upon overhearing this conversation. Where he once struggled to restrain his excitement, he now handles it calmly. Meanwhile, Sayaka advises Myra to inform him if he grows too overwhelmed. Imagining them engaged in an intimate encounter, the Lady Bishop is bewildered and questions what exactly is occurring between Sister Myra and him. At that moment, she overhears Myra reminding him that earlier he said the more, the merrier, and she suggests calling Lucia too. He replies that they should first seek Lucia's opinion before proceeding. Hearing this, Lucia becomes terrified, fearing that Myra intends to involve her. She's left wondering why she would be chosen. She envisions both herself and Myra enjoying Sayaka's company simultaneously. The mere thought of this scenario makes her tremble uncontrollably. Just then, the door opens and Myra steps out, asking Lucia if she might, before she can finish her question. Lucia suddenly faints and collapses to the floor. As Myra emerges from the room, Lucia clings to her and tells her she will see her at the bishop's meeting. While embracing Myra, Lucia casts a fierce glare at Suyok filled with anger. Shortly after, she jumps into her car and speeds away, leaving him to wonder what had just transpired. Myra informs him that Lucia has already departed and reveals that the real issue lies with Coco. Coco feels pleased that Lucia doesn't act arrogantly despite her bishop status, reminding others that she's insignificant. Coco commands Myra to immediately procure fresh blood and a resting place, promising to gladly accept Lucia as her subordinate afterward. Suddenly, Sayaka strikes Coco, sharply telling her to keep silent. Myra questions whether this approach will genuinely benefit their situation. He reiterates that, as previously explained, he requires vampire blood if they intend to treat her as an adversary. Their only option is to drain her blood before eliminating her. However, if they keep her as an ally, she'll constantly demand sustenance. Given her ability to detect him and her combat prowess, her support could prove invaluable. Myra agrees with the strategy, yet she questions whether he can truly control someone like her. Coco, frightened, hides behind Sayak's legs, puzzled by the expectation that the Vatican would act with such brutality. Myra wonders why Coco treats him kindly. He admits he doesn't understand her motives either. He glares at Myra while glancing down at Coco, who remains concealed behind his legs. He reflects that his rage consumed him after his comrades fell, leading him to kill the director and all the team members who had sacrificed themselves. In truth, he destroyed them entirely. This girl, too, has lost a friend and undoubtedly feels a burning fire of vengeance within. He calls Coco by name, prompting her to look up at him with a gaze filled with affection and trust. He explains to Coco that their plan involves killing her master Anna, and while her assistance would be beneficial, it is not absolutely required. She faces a choice to die as a vampire or to seek revenge alongside them for her fallen friend. At this moment, Coco must decide between these two paths. After a brief pause, Coco responds that she despises Anna for constantly making things hard for Ayaka, and she harbors even greater hatred toward the Vatican because Myra harmed Ayaka. Yet she cannot forgive the one who took Ayaka's life. If he eliminates that despicable Anna, she pledges to do anything for him. At that precise moment, Sayak turns to Myra, awaiting her response. She agrees to let him and Coco have a conversation together during the bishop's meeting, making them her responsibility from now on. If he loses control or causes harm to anyone, he will be held accountable without delay. Myra immediately feels regret for speaking those words. Inside the bathroom, Coco showers while angrily shouting at the Vatican official, accusing her of deceit and demanding to know how she could subject her to such torment. As Myra rinses her off, she remarks on Coco's strong odor, wondering how long it has been since her last wash. Coco protests that she smells fine, but Myra mocks her, suggesting she must have a poor sense of smell. Myra internally reflects that, as someone who hunts vampires, washing this dog is a task below her usual standard. Sayak reminds her that he previously mentioned the need for vampire blood and encourages her to stay positive, emphasizing that all of this is necessary for the greater good. In his room, Sayak is carefully cleaning his silver knife. Suddenly, Coco darts out like a naked cat, frantic and shouting that Myra poisoned her eyes, begging him to rescue her. While dragging Coco back to the bathroom, Myra questions why he isn't rushing over immediately. Coco continues to cry out for help, but Myra orders her to keep her eyes shut and remain still. Sayak recalls his friends teasing him, calling him Hyung and asking if he's about to get promoted. He replies firmly, telling them to stop using that title and to address him as team leader Sayak from now on. They laugh at him, prompting him to tell them to stop because it's embarrassing. In a playful tone, they ask for a treat, specifically a beef steak, jokingly calling him the only team leader in moments like these. Suddenly, their commander appears, wanting to join in on the treat. His friends quickly inform him that Sayak is already treating everyone to beef. Still annoyed, Sayak reminds them that being a team leader doesn't entitle them to call him Hyung. The commander responds with a smile, saying that once a Hyung, always a Hyung. Sayak reflects on how noisy and lively those times used to be. Meanwhile, Myra continues attending to Coco, instructing her to quickly rinse her mouth and warning her not to eat anything while in the bathroom. After finishing her shower, Myra, exhausted, lies down on her bed, thinking how surreal the situation is. Coco rarely listens to her but faithfully follows Sayak's commands. Whenever Sayak orders her to sit, Coco obediently complies like a well-trained dog. She even dresses herself immediately at his instruction, without hesitation. Afterward, he carefully dries her hair, attending to her as if she were fragile. Myra wonders if Coco's obedient behavior stems from the fact that she previously fought with her friend. She also recalls Coco's words, how she cannot forgive the person who killed Ayaka and that, if that someone kills Anna, she will do anything for them. Myra reflects on how losing something precious and being stranded alone in hostile territory must have made Coco extremely sensitive and guarded. Recognizing this, she realizes she needs to try harder to understand Coco's feelings and experiences. Suddenly, she wakes up from her thoughts. Myra finds Coco quietly drinking blood from her own hand and, puzzled, asks what she's doing. Coco nonchalantly replies that she's hungry. Myra smiles warmly at her. In her other hand, she firmly grips her sword, ready for whatever comes next. Sayak is fast asleep when Coco's voice suddenly cuts through the quiet, stirring him from his rest. She lashes out at Myra, accusing her of finally revealing her true nature, labeling her a Vatican zealot who cursed her to die, before storming out the door. He closes his eyes once more, quietly expressing gratitude for Myra's tireless dedication. While he remains deeply asleep, Coco settles herself atop him, gazing down with tender affection and care. She resolves silently that he now belongs to her, claiming him in her heart without hesitation. In the early morning silence, Sayak stirs from a deep sleep only to discover someone is lying on top of him. Curious, he gently lifts the blanket. He soon realizes it's Coco, peacefully asleep like a child on top of him, and he wonders why she's there. She softly explains that the sunlight outside makes it unsafe. At that moment, he wishes Coco would wake up immediately. Still puzzled by her sudden presence, he pulls the blanket away completely. She refuses to let go, tears streaming down as she calls out Ayaka's name. At this point, he understands her distress. He had ingested Ayaka's blood, carrying her scent with him now. That's why she followed his every word so faithfully. He empathizes deeply with the pain of losing a cherished companion. He finally understands the reason behind her heartfelt tears for Ayaka. Still clutching him tightly in bed, Coco refuses to let him go. He recalls a time when his commander consoled him kindly, allowing him to cry like a vulnerable child. He reassures Coco gently that everything will be all right now. Meanwhile, inside the hotel gymnasium at that very moment, he and Mirror are engrossed in rigorous martial arts training. Mirror launches a lightning-fast punch toward him. He swiftly dodges the attack with ease. Mirror's eyes widen in amazement at his remarkable speed. When he retaliates with a punch, it strikes her squarely in the face. She comments that his reflexes have suddenly sharpened, now far quicker than before. Curious, she asks if this boost is due to Ayaka's blood, seeing it as an advantage she wants to exploit. He wonders what she means, and she explains that today marks the day of the Bishop Conference. His status remains unofficial for now, but today will determine whether he is officially accepted or declared unfit for this order. He can't help but wonder what fate awaits him if he is rejected. Mirror calmly informs him that rejection means immediate execution. She places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him not to worry because she believes in his extraordinary potential. His ability to attract elusive vampires combined with his rapid development will enable him to rival the captains in a short span. These two qualities will empower him to make significant contributions to the Order, especially since he holds the pivotal role of ending the crusade by eliminating Anna. She asks if he lacks confidence in fulfilling this mission. He responds that even as a human he was strong, and now, having learned to amplify his power as a vampire, defeating Anna is only a matter of time. There's much to accomplish, so let's wrap up this Bishop Conference or whatever it is as quickly as possible. Mirror beams with happiness, encouraged by his unwavering confidence. They steel themselves and prepare to enter the conference room. Our protagonist reflects on Nanyama Anna, the squad leaders, and himself now transformed into a vampire. He contemplates the Vatican, viewing them all as demons born from the same infernal flame. Whether the Vatican seeks to use him or he uses them, he remains indifferent. His resolve hardens to exact revenge on the woman responsible for shattering his life. Having subdued 2 of the 7 leaders, he's now only 5 steps away from confronting Anna. He knows he must drain them all to grow stronger. This is his plan. Meanwhile, Anna is questioning Katrina about the details of the recent battle. Katrina reveals that Ayaka's death has been confirmed and suspects that Coco is likely hiding within the Vatican's reach. She clarifies that by this, she means Coco is currently with Sayak. Katrina reassures Anna that everything proceeded exactly as planned and that he is developing remarkably well. She also adds that he managed to neutralize the poison she had transformed, indicating he will reach them without any need for intervention. Anna instructs her to concentrate solely on the red target until further notice. At the upcoming Bishop Conference set to take place inside the cathedral, Mirror shares this information with Sayak. He questions why they aren't in the sanctum they used before, and she explains that this location is the cathedral beneath the Vatican. Showing him a map, she elaborates that this cathedral functions as both a place of worship and an intelligence hub, and since he's barred from the sanctum housing sacred relics, the conference was specially arranged here for his participation. Sayak acknowledges her efforts appreciatively and confirms his full understanding of the situation. However, he questions whether it was truly necessary to go to such extremes, remarking that the order only mandated restraining him as a precaution if he proved uncontrollable. She explains that although some bishops are hostile toward him, he remains a preferable option compared to Coco. From a short distance, a man observes them and quietly inquires whether that individual is her vampire. Mirror greets Bishop Dominic warmly, mentioning it has been quite some time since their last meeting. He expresses concern for her well-being, while Dominic wonders if Sayak is indeed the vampire who once operated as a black agent and is now attempting to affiliate with the Vatican. Dominic beams with joy, calling it fantastic news. He firmly believes that Sayok will become a formidable addition to their combat team, having clearly discovered a remarkable talent. Mirror shares that during a mission, she held her ground evenly against those squad leaders. Dominic mocks her lightly, suggesting it was only against the weakest squad leader. Meanwhile, he confesses his desire to incinerate every vampire he encounters. Regretting his absence, he chuckles at our hero's expense. Sayok gently pulls Dominic's hand away from his shoulder. As Dominic departs, he says it was a pleasure meeting him and promises to catch up later in the meeting room. He summons his assistant, Hilda, to accompany him. Hilda greets Mirror warmly, remarking that it's been a while and that they'll see each other soon in the meeting room. Before leaving, Hilda gazes at our hero with wide, innocent eyes. After studying him for a moment, she offers her own greeting. Sayok questions whether Hilda truly holds the title of bishop. She explains it's a special circumstance, making her role quite distinct from the usual hierarchy. He likely perceives this too, but to most Vatican members, he probably remains a persistent irritant. While others share Dominic's stance, some are openly antagonistic. Suddenly, Lucia bursts in and embraces Mirror. Mirror wonders how Lucia arrived so quickly, noting they seem to be meeting more often these days. Lucia inquires if Mirror enjoys their time together, to which Mirror replies wholeheartedly that seeing her brings happiness. Lucia casts an angry glare at Sayok. Lucia, curious, asks Mirror if she has spotted Lady Cecilia yet. Mirror replies that she hasn't encountered her so far. Lucia warns Mirror to be wary of Lady Cecilia, prompting Mirror to ask why she should be cautious. Lucia confesses that her hatred for vampires surpasses that of anyone else. No matter how much Sayok assists the Vatican, she will vehemently oppose him without hesitation. Mirror expresses gratitude for the caution, but assures Lucia that there's nothing to fear. Despite their frequent clashes, Mirror remains confident in Cecilia's qualifications as a bishop. Suddenly, Sayok alerts Mirror that a blaze is rapidly heading straight toward her. Reacting swiftly, Mirror slashes the fire with her sword, hurling the flames far from herself. She wonders in bewilderment what could possibly be happening. Cecilia announces that she is merely fulfilling her duties as a bishop. Confronting Mirror, she questions how a bishop tasked with protecting people from vampires could now be defending one. Cecilia insists there's no need for discussion and commands Mirror to abandon Sayok immediately. As Cecilia readies herself to strike Sayok again, Lucia intervenes, reminding her that they brought Sayok here under the Cardinal's orders. Unmoved, Cecilia maintains that she is just performing her duties and orders Mirror to step aside without resistance. Lucia attempts to reason with Lady Cecilia, but the latter remains fixated on Sayok, captivated by him. Mirror warns that if Cecilia refuses to move aside, she will personally intervene. Ignoring the warning, Cecilia lunges forward, reminding Mirror that she had already given her a prior caution. Lucia prepares to intervene, but Mirror firmly signals her to stand down, assuring her she can manage this challenge her own way. Now, Lady Cecilia and Mirror face each other, mere moments away from an intense confrontation. The battle ignites as Mirror brandishes her sword while Cecilia strikes back using her enchanted fist. Thick smoke and blazing flames engulf the air, obscuring the swift and precise movements of their clash. Filled with anxiety, Lucia wonders silently whether Mirror is holding her ground against such a formidable adversary. Suddenly, a female bishop arrives on the scene, demanding an explanation for the unexpected turmoil. Sword against fist, Mirror and Cecilia continue their fierce exchange, with Mirror taken aback by Cecilia's effortless defense. The newly arrived bishop closely observes the duel and, intrigued, questions Cecilia about Mirror's true identity. Without a moment's hesitation, all three female bishops bow deeply in perfect unison, paying respect to Her Holiness. The dignitary they honor is none other than Cardinal Helena herself, commanding presence and reverence. Cecilia promptly offers a sincere apology for her earlier disrespectful conduct. Helena waves off the apology graciously, indicating she already understands the motives behind Cecilia's behavior. She commands everyone to proceed to the meeting chamber, with Mirror acknowledging the order clearly and respectfully. However, Cecilia warns Mirror to treat the upcoming gathering not as a discussion, but as a trial that could determine life or death. She makes it unmistakably clear, without a solid justification, the man's fate will be sealed by her own hand today. Lucia then gestures for Mirror to accompany her into the meeting room, signaling the next critical step. Mirror steadies herself with unwavering focus, aware that failure in today's meeting would cost both Sayok and Coco their lives. Inside the conference chamber, Helena officially opens the session, marking the start of the proceedings. All 6 participants take their seats around the table while Sayok stands facing them. Helena welcomes everyone warmly, nodding it has been some time and expressing her hope that all have been well. Cecilia quickly asks to speak, capturing Helena's attention, who wonders about her intent. Cecilia apologizes politely, but firmly demands to know why a despised vampire is allowed in such a sacred space. Mirror notes that Cecilia wasted no time getting straight to the heart of the matter. Helena acknowledges that everyone was likely taken aback by the agenda today. She emphasizes that this issue is probably the foremost concern on everyone's mind during this gathering. Having briefed them all, she invites each member to share their perspectives on the matter. Cecilia exclaims loudly that the presence of a vampire within the Vatican is utterly unacceptable. Dominic admits he struggles to trust them, believing they succumb too easily to anger and temptation. Bishop Hilda, however, counters by saying she remains uncertain. Cecilia directs her question to Lucia, who responds that she has already met him. Meanwhile, Dominic hands Hilda a candy, encouraging her to speak freely. She accepts gratefully, like a child. Lucia then explains to Cecilia that her first encounter was when Anna's team leader attacked the hotel. At that critical moment, Sayok risked his life to protect the base. He also assisted the allied members who joined their cause. However, since no information about him had been shared, they continued to view him with suspicion. Despite this, they persisted in their assaults against him. Though fully capable of defending himself, he refrained from retaliating against their attacks. Dominic reacts with surprise upon hearing this revelation. Lucia elaborates, adding that Sayok is also under the direct authority of Bishop Mirror. Lucia believes this connection makes sense since the two share a romantic relationship. She chooses not to voice this during the meeting. Just as she finishes her statement, her nose unexpectedly begins to bleed. Finally, Helena turns to Bishop Mirror with a question, expressing her faith in Sayok and asking why Mirror considers him indispensable to the Vatican. Mirror responds that her conviction stems from a profound revelation she witnessed. Cecilia chuckles skeptically and queries what prompted her defense of him. Deeply disillusioned with Mirror, she points out that the revelation signifies two possibilities. It could mark the birth of beings like them, the chosen ones, or serve as a dire warning of an imminent threat, which clearly implies the necessity to eliminate Sayok. Cecilia adds that this man has even brutally slain his own comrades without mercy. Suddenly, Sayok interjects, claiming that those men were the aggressors who attacked him and his team. Cecilia snaps at him to be silent, preparing to strike, and declares that scum like him have no right to speak. Our hero returns Cecilia's glare, his eyes blazing with anger. Meanwhile, Coco awakens confined in a cell, her stomach gnawing with hunger. All she can think about is her intense craving to drink blood. Mirror insists that Sayok was the true victim of betrayal. If not for his sacrifice, the agents' lives would have continued to be lost. Cecilia, still burning with anger, retorts that regardless, he remains a vampire, and their ancestral mandate to exterminate their kind is unmistakably clear. Mirror concurs, affirming that their mission is to completely eradicate the vampires. She adds that they must also confront Anna and her faction of vampires without exception. She inquires if anyone among them has the ability to lure their enemies out willingly. Mirror reflects on her team's skills. The Vatican, founded by St. Peter, boasts a rich history spanning 2 millennia. Thanks to the unwavering dedication and sacrifices of its members, only Anna remains from the ancient vampire lineage. Yet Anna cleverly conceals herself in the shadows, steadily expanding her influence while evading capture. Suddenly, those who had been in hiding have started to surface, merely triggered by Sayok's emergence. Since his arrival, the leader of the 7th squad has been completely wiped out. Following suit, the 6 squad leaders have also fallen and joined them in defeat. Mirror explains that everything once stalled is now rapidly accelerating. With this momentum, they finally have a promising lead to conclude the 2,000-year-long chase in their generation. Infuriated, Cecilia challenges Mirror, accusing her of nonsense and questioning how she can ignore the 6th squad leader's demise. Has she lost her mind? Cecilia demands that the Cardinal strip Mirror of her rank and authorize the immediate execution of both vampires. Helena acknowledges Mirror's assertion as bold, yet concedes that it deserves serious consideration. Because of that man, Anna has revealed her vulnerability for the first time, and she might see this as an opportunity to propose forming an experimental unit. Meanwhile, Cecilia remains determined to prevent it. Helena insists they cannot overlook the issue of legitimacy. If more than half of the bishops approve, the decision will be enforced. Now Helena demands that everyone who supports this decision must fully accept responsibility for its consequences. Mirror acknowledges her understanding without hesitation. Slamming her fist on the table, Cecilia declares she can accept Sayok's involvement 100 times over. However, the other individual was Anna's subordinate, and that woman is absolutely intolerable. Helena questions whether Coco, known for low aggression and difficult to control, will prove this. She commands that the 6th squad leader, Coco, be brought in for assessment. Suddenly, a male bishop rushes in, causing Helena's anger to flare as she demands to know why he left the meeting. He quickly apologizes and explains the urgency of the matter. Helena's curiosity is piqued as she awaits the explanation. The bishop shouts that the vampire known as 6th squad leader Coco has just escaped custody. The entire room erupts in shock upon hearing that Coco has broken free. Cecilia mocks Mirror over Coco's escape, but Mirror quickly shifts focus, emphasizing that recapturing her is the top priority, and even notes that it is still daytime, which might aid their efforts. Dominic warns that if Coco managed to escape from the basement, it would spell disaster for them all. Mirror theorizes that Coco's likely destinations are limited, with the orphanage at the cathedral being a prime suspect. She envisions a child waking in the night to use the restroom, illustrating the vulnerability of the space. As he opens the door, he finds Coco already there, patiently awaiting her arrival. Dominic calls out urgently for the children, but the girl bishop interrupts, asking him to hold on for a moment. She is deeply focused, channeling her concentration on something unseen. Sayok watches intently as her eyes begin to glow brightly, and the energy around her shifts palpably. Dominic urges her to stay calm, reassuring her that her siblings are safe and sound. He realizes it will be too late if she loses control over her emotions. Suddenly, an electric current spirals around them and everyone braces, expecting it to unleash at any moment. Lucia warns everyone to stay alert and proceed with caution. Sayok calls out urgently to Mirror, alerting her that the impending danger is aimed at her side. Out of nowhere, a sword plummets from the sky. Lucia's attention quickly shifts to worries about Mirror's safety. Helena shares the concern, anxiously wondering if Mirror is all right. The sword grazes Mirror's arm, causing a sharp cut that begins to bleed. Mirror expresses her gratitude to Helena for her timely assistance and for saving her life. Lucia rushes over to Mirror, urgently asking about the extent of her injury. Helena instructs Lucia to proceed to the orphanage first, and Lucia responds affirmatively without hesitation. Helena orders Dominic to oversee the care of Bishop Hilda. Since Bishop Dominic is highly trusted, Helena believes this responsibility will be handled effectively. Helena informs the team that the rest will head to the orphanage and warns that if the vampire causes any trouble, she will hold Mirror fully accountable for the consequences. Mirror responds with determination, affirming her commitment. Cecilia sprints toward the director's office, exclaiming that she had foreseen this outcome all along. Because she is a vampire of the caliber of a Nan-Yama Yakuza sect leader, her true nature remains unaltered. If anything goes wrong, it's entirely due to Mirror's actions. Suddenly, she notices Lucia standing before a door, prompting Cecilia to question their urgency and why Lucia is there. Upon arriving at the orphanage room, Cecilia is horrified to discover all the children lifeless and worries whether she's arrived too late. Cecilia erupts in anger, shouting at the vampire and demanding an explanation for what it has done. However, when she enters the children's room, she is taken aback to see Coco happily playing with a child who is joyfully riding on her back. Another child informs Cecilia that if she wants a turn, she needs to join the queue. Realizing her earlier fears were only imagination, Cecilia sees all the children alive and joyful with Coco, causing her to question whether that being is truly a squad leader. Mirror rushes into the room, immediately asking Coco what she is doing with the children. Mirror's bloodstained arm catches her attention. Excitedly, Coco pleads for just a sip of Mirror's blood, but Mirror firmly refuses her request. Cecilia sternly tells Mirror she knows full well that the vampire is responsible. Despite Mirror's refusal, Coco persistently begs for a sip of blood until Mirror sharply interrupts, questioning her motives. Undeterred, Cecilia decides firmly to eliminate Coco and orders Mirror to stay away from her. Coco, puzzled, wonders what Cecilia means by that instruction. Coco explains to her that Sayok warned her never to drink anyone else's blood. Cecilia is taken aback to realize that, despite being a vampire, she remains completely in control. Mirror wonders if she is permitted to drink only her own blood. Just as Cecilia lunges at Coco, Dominic quickly grabs her hand, reminding her the children are watching and she must suppress her powers. Hilda rushes in, her concern evident as she checks on the children's safety. The children beam with joy upon seeing Hilda and eagerly call out her name. Hilda expresses relief at their safety and inquires about their condition, learning from the children that Coco had been playing with them and they enjoyed every moment. At that moment, Mirror signals Coco to pause, but Coco insists she can't wait any longer. The children then point excitedly at her, noting how her red eyes accompanied their playtime. She even let them climb onto her back for fun. Together, they shared many joyful hours of play. Overcome with emotion, Hilda starts to cry as she gazes at Coco. Hilda quickly embraces Mirror, apologizing sincerely for the pain she caused her. Mirror reassures her, explaining she was only worried about her siblings and didn't mean to cause any harm, so it's all right. Hilda also takes a moment to thank Coco. While Coco pleads once again for just a single sip of Mirror's blood, Sayok storms in, delivers a sharp blow to her head, and firmly orders her to stop. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, Helena announces that the results are in, confirming that the two vampires can be controlled. With the majority of bishops in agreement, they decide to proceed with operating an experimental unit involving the vampires. She then asks her team if anyone objects to this plan. Cecilia replies that there are no objections. Helena ratifies the decision and proceeds to remove Sayok's handcuff. Meanwhile, Coco persistently tries to sip blood from Mirror's arm. Helena then announces that Mirror will lead the squad and concludes the bishop meeting with this declaration. Hilda tells Mirror that she'll see her again next time. As she departs, Lucia reminds Mirror to mind her injuries, cautioning her not to overexert and to reach out if she needs assistance. Mirror expresses gratitude, and Lucia adds that if the vampires cause trouble, she should call immediately and Lucia will rush to handle it. Mirror assures her it's not necessary. Lucia cautions Mirror to stay vigilant and be careful. From a short distance, Cecilia calls out to Myra's name. Both wonder aloud why Cecilia is seeking her attention at this moment. Cecilia reminds Mirror that their crusade's true purpose is to save humans from vampires. She warns that if anyone betrays this honorable mission, she will obliterate them to uphold her duty. As she departs, Cecilia urges Mirror to watch over the team responsibly. Meanwhile, in Vladivostok, Russia, a group of men are gathered, drinking in a local bar. A man steps inside and approaches the counter, greeting an elderly gentleman with, "It's been a long time." Ivan responds, revealing he requires the man's assistance. The old man remarks with a hint of disappointment that he only hears from him during moments like these. He then reminds him sharply not to forget who blinded him. This man is Ivan, the formidable mafia boss. Ivan solemnly recalls the day he lost both his mentor and his eye to this very man. 4 henchmen from Ivan's crew swiftly draw their guns, pressing them against the young man's head. Intrigued by his audacity, Ivan calls out Sayok's name, questioning what courage brings him here. Ivan questions Sayok directly about his reasons for traveling to Russia. Sayok recalls Dominic's briefing. Recent intelligence suggested the Yakuza involved in a hotel raid might be vampires, prompting autopsies that surprisingly confirmed they were all human. However, a strange finding emerged. Drugs linked to supernatural abilities were discovered in their systems. A month prior, the Russian faction was decimated by the mafia, who also tested positive for the same drug. Meanwhile, surveillance has been tracking the Nanyama Yakuza's operations in Russia. This situation necessitates a thorough investigation into both Anna and the mysterious drug. He's already arranged accommodations, enabling the mission to begin immediately at the Crusade Alliance's affiliate, Hotel Vladivostok branch. Mirror lounges on the sofa while Coco, seated like a cat, sits attentively on the floor directly in front of her. Sayok walks into the room. Mirror asks him why he looks so clean, expecting him to be disheveled after causing such a major uproar. He tells her that he obtained the location of Nanyama's hideout and already devised an operation plan. He urges her to pay close attention, assuring he'll explain every detail clearly. Mirror is puzzled, wondering how he managed to lose an eye and yet revealed critical information without hesitation. Sayok asks if she's ready to confront the Nanyama Yakuza and Ivan, their hostile enemies. He emphasizes the danger and insists she listens carefully to his plan. After he outlines the strategy, she beams with pride and admiration, declaring that his skills truly befit a top-tier agent. She consents to join the plan but inquires about her specific role. She also asks if there was any alternative approach considered before settling on this one. He clarifies that given the current circumstances, this plan represents the most effective and practical course of action. Mirror feels uneasy about her disguise, particularly unhappy about wearing a wig and colored contact lenses. Sayok, looking exceptionally polished, explains that since their team consists of vampires, disguises are crucial. He questions whether she would prefer to enter a club dressed as a priest brandishing a great sword. Considering her injuries, this outfit is the most sensible choice. Mirror expresses frustration with her appearance, conceding that she can tolerate the wig and lenses. However, she objects strongly to her dress, deeming it excessively short for the occasion. She points out that the outfit reveals her undergarments, which makes her deeply uncomfortable. At the nightclub's entrance, a security guard halts them, questioning Coco about her casual attire. He notices she is dressed in everyday clothes, wearing sunglasses and slippers which seem inappropriate for the venue. The guard explains that her entry is complicated due to strict regulations. Mirror asks Sayok to translate what the guard is saying since she doesn't understand Russian. Suddenly, Coco unzips her shirt to reveal her cleavage. Upon seeing this, the guard reluctantly grants them permission to enter. Mirror reacts with surprise. Sayok confirms that everyone has entered and expresses hope that each will fulfill their assigned roles. At that moment, the operation officially commences. Mirror is amazed as she takes in the interior of the club. Inside, men and women are engaged in explicit and debauched activities. Mirror feels disgusted and furiously calls them corrupt scoundrels, wondering how she can blend in and what her next move should be. As these thoughts whirl through her, a sudden touch on her shoulder shocks her. Instinctively, she yells out in alarm, invoking the name of Jesus Christ. A man stands behind her, greeting her smoothly with a teasing, "Hello, beautiful," catching her completely off guard. The unexpected use of English surprises her even more as he asks if there's a room available and invites her to join him. Conflicted, Mirror hesitates, but the man grabs her hand and starts pulling her toward the room. She sternly tells him not to touch her. Meanwhile, Sayok walks through the corridors, wondering why there seems to be no need for a large troop deployment. Yet, as he moves along, he doesn't spot a single person anywhere. He reaches a dead end and realizes the area remains deserted all the way to the deepest point. Suddenly, he senses someone standing directly behind him. He swiftly turns around. He notices a crowd of men watching him intently and instantly realizes he's walking into a trap. Standing just behind those men is Ivan, quietly waiting. Ivan tells him that he has been anticipating this confrontation for a long time. He reveals that Lady Katrina promised to make him the leader here if he handed him over to her. He advises Sayok that it's in his best interest to comply quietly. Ivan warns that every person present is armed with silver bullets. He tells him not to worry about his girlfriend. Their plan involves slipping drugs into her drink to incapacitate and assault her afterward. Ivan hopes their operation targeting her is already underway, ensuring she is out of harm's way. Yet before surrendering him to Katrina, they still have unfinished business to resolve. Ivan pulls out his knife, intent on destroying Sayok's remaining eye. Sayok recalls when he informed Mirror about the Nanyama Yakuza's location. She warned him he was the one who lost his eye, and yet he divulged the intel so easily. They suspect that Nanyama Yakuza and Ivan pose a mutual threat, prompting a planned raid. Sayok recognizes their intent. They want him to believe in a false alliance and fall into a trap where they'll corner and mercilessly eliminate them. Relieved, Sayok is glad they followed his strategy carefully. Ivan, intrigued, asks him to clarify what he just said. Our hero reflects that when he was tasked with eliminating Anna, he took time to thoroughly research their background. He discovers that rather than cooperating with existing groups when distributing their goods, they simply absorb those forces. Their products have become dominant in the region's trade. Ivan questions whether this scoundrel was fully aware of his organization being overtaken by the Nanyama Yakuza. Ivan fears that Sayok still possesses the power to eliminate them. Ivan commands his men to turn that contemptible man into a swarm of bullets. The mafia members open fire relentlessly on him. Undeterred, he charges directly at Ivan and his men. Noticing the direct assault, Ivan panics. The entire path is riddled with silver bullets, and if even one hits or slows him, disaster follows. Ivan observes as Sayok skillfully deflects the bullets using his knife. In an instant, Sayok reaches Ivan's men and begins dispatching them one after another with lethal precision. Meanwhile, Coco captivates everyone by dancing gracefully on the floor, commanding all eyes. After eliminating the mafia members, Sayok signals Coco that it's time to move and orders her to track the scent of Mirror's blood. She leaps from the dance floor and sprints toward Mirror without hesitation. Ivan taunts Sayok, warning him that he's seriously mistaken. Injured and surrounded by the corpses of his men, Ivan leans against the wall and tells Sayok it seems he's trying to uncover their plan after abducting women. Ivan calls him a fool for sending a comrade, especially a woman, deep into enemy territory. She has no idea what they do before deliveries arrive, no matter the circumstances. By now his girlfriend should be unconscious, completely swept away by an overwhelming wave of adorable charm. Sayak fires a shot into Ivan's shoulder, warning him not to forget his true identity while questioning whether he is genuinely composed. He tells Ivan that now is no time to worry about others, assuring him there's no cause to concern himself with her. His real focus should be on his own men. When one of Ivan's men attempts to grab her hand, she instantly snaps his hand and swiftly takes down all the men trying to drag her into a room. Outside the club, the men quickly realize they're walking into an ambush and shout urgent warnings for their comrades to take cover. But it's actually Mirror who launches the surprise attack. With fierce kicks, she effortlessly throws the attackers aside one by one. A gleaming object on her heel catches the light as she dispatches them with remarkable ease. She recalls Sayak's warning from their planning session that those scoundrels would use tricks to make her lose consciousness. Her role is to feign being knocked out. This will allow them to carry her to the actual location where the business happens. From there, Coco will track her, and all she needs to do is wait for him. She also remembers questioning how Sayak could be so certain they would come after her. In reply, he told her there was a specific item she needed to wear. This left her speechless, with no argument to offer. After all the exertion, she's already losing blood, and Sayak's cautionary words ring loudly in her mind. He told her to remember that she's wounded, to avoid pushing herself too hard, and to wait patiently. Mirror wonders if the absence of signals stems from their being underground, and according to Sayak's plan, her mission is simply to wait. In the midst of silence, she distinctly hears someone whispering that this is the final one. They said it was the last. She realizes that others were captured before her, and could be enduring unimaginable horrors even now. Apologizing to Sayak, she recalls Cecilia's words. Their true mission as a core is to rescue people from vampires, no matter how hellish the circumstances. Determined to save these victims, she sets off toward the secret chamber hidden downstairs. She believes that, as a member of the Vatican, she has a responsibility to protect and aid others. She questions the reason behind the mass abduction of so many individuals. Watching several vehicles depart from the club while few arrive, she deduces that multiple locations are involved in transporting the captives, but for what purpose? She wonders why there are fully equipped operating rooms and numerous prisons here, yet no staff or guards seem present. Suddenly her eyes catch a red test tube filled with blood. The tube is clearly labeled, blood. She finds this discovery particularly intriguing and unsettling. Suddenly, Katrina appears and demands to know how she managed to get here. Katrina remarks that all the human women ought to be entombed by now, as she stares at Mirror standing just behind her reflection. Mirror struggles to comprehend how she was silently captured from behind, recognizing this woman must be the leader of the Nanayama Yakuza. She presses once more, demanding to know Mirror's true identity. Mirror feels the weight of encountering the Yakuza leader at such a vulnerable moment, unarmed and injured. She begins to pray fervently, "O God, even if my life must end by your will, grant me strength to carry out my duty until my final breath." At this moment, she reveals to Katrina that she serves as a bishop within the Vatican's elite task force. She introduces herself as Mirror. Upon recognition, Katrina summons her snakes and recalls that Mirror was the one embracing Sayak. Mirror contemplates that if she perishes, Sayak should take charge of what remains. Without hesitation, Mirror launches an attack on Katrina. Simultaneously, Coco detects Mirror's scent and points out that it lingers directly beneath their feet. Sayak immediately realizes that this is their true headquarters. He hopes to rendezvous with Mirror, but Coco cautions him that from this point onward, uncertainty clouds the path. He inquires if Coco can detect Mirror's blood scent. Coco reveals that, in fact, the situation is quite the reverse. She gestures toward the door and explains that behind it lies an overwhelming, almost suffocating stench of blood, far too much. It begs the question of what sinister activity might be unfolding. On the floor, he spots Mirror's phone. He plays her voice message where she apologizes for deviating from the original plan but explains that hostages are involved, forcing her to act immediately. She reiterates that the task force's mission is to rescue people from vampires. Saving innocent lives takes precedence over their own safety or even the task force's survival. She entrusts him with the responsibility to fulfill their mission unwaveringly. As a fellow comrade, she expresses her deep faith in his capabilities. He tells Coco to move swiftly without delay. Concerned, Coco insists they must locate Mirror as soon as possible. Sayak senses something is troubling Coco and wonders about her unease. Coco points out that the scent here matches exactly the one present when they encountered Red. Shaken, he realizes that a vampire, that is, the leader, must be here. Sayok asks Coco how many individuals they are facing and whether one of them is the leader. Coco responds that she doesn't know, but it's clear she suddenly exhibits intense anxiety, displaying classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. He tells her he can't afford to wait any longer, thinking that although he doesn't know what lies ahead, Mirror is in imminent danger. Something feels wrong, as this facility shows no evidence of recent activity or use. Coco clings tightly to his arm, clearly terrified. She urges him to turn back, expressing her discomfort and unease about the place. He encourages Coco to hold on just a little longer, promising that they will rescue the kidnapped victims and Mirror. Despite the difficulty, she should continue scanning for signs. Suddenly, he notices bloodstains smeared across the floor. He realizes these marks indicate someone has been dragged along the ground. The absence of struggle signs suggests the hostages were likely incapacitated or drugged. He tells Coco that following this trail will lead them to the captives, urging her to stay strong a little longer because freedom is near. Coco urgently alerts him that the blood belongs to Mirror. Sayok immediately understands this means Mirror has been captured. Both sprint toward Mirror's location. He worries she might have encountered the leader despite his warning not to push herself while injured, and prays fervently for her safety. He draws his gun, preparing for confrontation. Upon entering the room, he is shocked to find numerous women imprisoned inside massive glass jars filled with liquid. He stands there, stunned, questioning the purpose of this place and what horrific experiments might be underway. Are they conducting human experiments? Why on earth are they injecting that mysterious red substance into those girls? Coco tells him that the injections hurt Ayaka deeply, and that she despised the red substance just as much. He wonders if this is the place where Ayaka and Coco were administered those drugs. At that moment, he realizes the terrible truth. These scoundrels are kidnapping people to experiment on them, trying to create vampires. The drug they're injecting is probably the key they've been searching for. If they manage to rescue everyone and thoroughly investigate this facility, they might uncover exactly what these villains are after. But first, he needs to find Mirror without delay. He instructs Coco to keep searching for her immediately. Suddenly, a familiar voice breaks through. It's Katrina. She speaks about Mirror, possibly referring to herself as she dangles Mirror in the air, held captive by her snake. He pulls his gun on Katrina, demanding to know exactly what she has done to Mirror. Katrina urges him to stay calm, assuring him she has no intention of killing Mirror, at least not yet. She explains her true goal isn't to possess the girl's body now. She will reach out to him when she's ready to exchange her body for his. He shouts at her to stop spouting nonsense and not waste time with her riddles. Katrina warns that they will cross paths again, advising him not to pursue her and suggesting he focus on saving the others instead. She reveals that since this place has been exposed, the death squad will soon arrive, and they've already completed everything they needed here. Her final act will be to blow this entire facility to pieces. Though regretful, she bids him farewell for now, promising they will meet again. Sayok pleads for her to wait for him. He urges Coco to snap out of her daze, noticing she's caught a faint scent. He realizes that if he pursues her now, he might just be able to rescue Mirror. Although he might save Mirror later, she has no intention of killing her immediately. Instead, she will reach out when she's ready to switch bodies, a warning from Katrina that lingers in his memory. He understands that those people will surely perish unless he acts immediately. The moment to decide has arrived. Suddenly, he recalls Mirror's message. The Death Squad's mission is to save humans from vampires, placing saving lives above personal risks or the team's safety. She trusts that he will carry out this mission faithfully. Her belief in him is unwavering. Overcome with rage, he shatters every glass container in sight. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the hallway. Our hero slumps against a wall, lost in thought and filled with sorrow for Mirror. He mourns the fact that Katrina succeeded in taking Mirror away, leaving him to focus on rescuing the remaining girls. The near disaster weighs heavily on him, leaving him frustrated and upset. Their efforts fell short, managing to save only a single girl. He vividly recalls that she was the only one who met his gaze from inside a glass container, her eyes glowing red. Alone among the test subjects, she survived. When the blast occurred, all the girls were injured severely. Yet she was the only one to heal rapidly, signaling to him that she had successfully transformed into a vampire. The girl awakens and expresses her gratitude to him, but she pleads with him to end her life, confessing that she was once a nun devoted to serving God. Her body has now been violated and corrupted beyond recognition. She recalls how Sayek placed his blood in her mouth to rouse her from unconsciousness. She pleads with him, declaring that if her survival depends on consuming another's blood, she would rather not live at all. He reassures her that their group shields everyone from vampires and never kills those who have been turned. In that moment, realization dawns on her. Suddenly, she grabs a shard of broken glass, attempting to drive it into her heart. He understands how bewildering it must be to wake up transformed into a vampire overnight, having endured it himself. Gently holding her hands, he stops her from harming herself and speaks to her. When he became a vampire, a member of the Order appeared before him. That member gave him a renewed purpose and a reason to keep living. She had always made a habit of putting others' lives before her own. The very life she once saved belongs to you now. He firmly believes she will discover her own reason to live, at the very least, for their sake, and urges her not to surrender to despair. Tears stream down the girl's face. She flings the sharp fragment of glass away. Then she leaps onto him, wrapping herself tightly around him in an embrace. She sobs uncontrollably, like a frightened child seeking comfort. Sayak reflects on Mirror, grateful that they managed to save at least one person, as she said. His thoughts softly plead for her safety. Several hours earlier, while Katrina looms beside the unconscious Mirror, she voices her impatience, insisting they should have ended her life already. She questions the wisdom of keeping the bishop scoundrel alive, arguing that since they captured her, they might as well finish the job. By doing so, they could easily bait Sayak into a trap and capture him as well. Anna takes command decisively, ordering Katrina to obey her without question because she already has a strategy in place. With a biting tone, Anna warns Katrina that unlike her, she actually thinks things through, mockingly calling her a foolish, man-obsessed fool. Visibly annoyed, Katrina interrupts Anna mid-sentence, issuing a stern warning not to underestimate her. Suddenly, one of Katrina's snakes lashes out aggressively at Anna. Anna swiftly crushes the snake with her bare hand, reminding Katrina that she's the one in control. Fuming, Katrina repeats her warning with greater intensity before unleashing a full-scale attack without hesitation. Yet Anna effortlessly dominates her in combat. Looking down on her opponent, Anna mocks Katrina for growing arrogant after just a sip of blood. She even jokes that Katrina has become unexpectedly more attractive while Anna wasn't paying attention. Anna confesses that if it weren't for her orders, she would have eliminated Katrina already. Out of nowhere, Katrina winces in pain as a snake bites her leg, leaving her stunned. Without missing a beat, she transforms one arm into a writhing mass of serpents. She declares defiantly that she never received any such orders. Enraged, she commands all her snakes to launch a relentless assault. Swearing vengeance, she vows that anyone who provokes her will meet a deadly fate. Unshaken, Anna taunts her sarcastically, asking if the snakes draped over her shoulders serve merely as decoration. When Katrina glances down in shock, she is horrified to realize all her snakes have mysteriously vanished. She can't believe how someone like the 5th squad leader and Lily, the 3rd squad leader, could treat her this way. Katrina recognizes that the other woman operates on a completely different level. Katrina reflects that a vampire at such a stage is extraordinary and far beyond ordinary expectations. She calls her a jerk and insists that since Sayak was promised to her, she will tolerate the situation, at least for the time being. As she walks away, curiosity gnaws at her about what the other woman intends to do with Mirror. She tells Katrina that when it comes to eliminating pests, she never just grabs whichever target crosses her path without thought. Sayak escorts Mirror to his room and warns her that if she truly wants to annihilate their entire kind, there's much more at stake. At that very moment, another formidable bishop bursts into their room. He announces his intention to storm their stronghold, brandishing a gun and aiming it straight at Sayak's head. This bishop, possessed by Katrina and acting on her orders, delivers a pointed message to Sayak from her. Sayak wonders how she managed to do that, as the bishop informs him that the woman is hidden in a place only she knows and that he must arrive there tonight. The bishop tosses a letter to Sayak, warning that if he fails to come alone, the woman's life will be forfeit. She will be waiting for him. After delivering the ominous message, the bishop shoots himself in the head, dying instantly and leaving no doubt about his resolve. Other bishops rush toward him, bewildered by his words, realizing that she even knows their exact location. Coco gazes solemnly at the fallen bishop and his fatal gunshot wound, suggesting they first tend to his injuries before proceeding. The other team members inform him that they have no alternative but to comply with her demands. Coco reveals to him that the operative Katrina used carries the scent of Mirror. They realize that employing that operative implies Mirror has just been moved. Sayak asks whether Coco can track Mirror immediately, and she answers that she can follow the trail. He then responds that, if so, He will confront Katrina directly while Coco rescues Mirror and then rendezvous with him. Coco swiftly objects, insisting that she will pursue Katrina herself because that scoundrel took Ayaka's life. Maintaining his calm, Sayaka acknowledges her thirst for vengeance. But without Mirror, the task force will seize the opportunity to eliminate them. Just as Ayaka held priceless value to her, Mirror and Coco are the most invaluable to him right now. With grave determination, he asks if she can ensure Mirror's safety. After a moment's hesitation, Coco consents. She then turns and sprints toward Mirror's location, reminding him once more that Katrina is hers to eliminate. Sayaka watches her depart before commanding his team to identify the task force member from earlier and to support Coco. He asserts firmly that he will personally oversee Mirror's rescue. As he exits the room, he reminds the team that Mirror will determine how to handle that vampire later. For now, their priority is to monitor her closely, and his team immediately acknowledges the directive. He shifts his gaze to the newcomer and firmly orders her to remain where she is. She responds calmly and simply with an okay. Sayaka contemplates Coco, realizing she likely intends to rush after the person who murdered her dear friend. If that's the case, he urges her to act quickly. After all, he cannot promise he will let that woman survive either. Late at night, Sayaka arrives at a church and steps inside. Katrina greets him warmly and reminds him that he is late for their wedding. Dressed in bridal attire, Katrina tells him that numerous guests have gathered to attend their wedding. Unbeknownst to him, all the guests are vampires. She wonders how her groom could possibly be so late. He glares at Katrina and sharply tells her to back off. Without hesitation, he opens fire, shooting her guest squarely in the head. A vampire lunges at him from behind, but he swiftly dodges the attack and retaliates, killing it instantly. One vampire pulls out a gun and takes aim to shoot. Sayaka forcefully kicks him aside and shoots him dead with precision. Using a fallen vampire as a human shield against incoming fire, he continues to shoot at the remaining foes. After eliminating most of them, his ammunition runs out. Another vampire armed with a gun attempts to shoot him. He narrowly dodges the bullet with incredible speed and swiftly kills the vampire with his knife. Immediately afterward, he dispatches another attacker using his knife. He warns Katrina that the games are over and demands she reveal Mirror's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Katrina remains composed, seemingly impressed by his fierce determination. She advises him to calm down, assuring him that she did not summon him for a fight. She cautions him that if he kills her, Mirror will perish as well. The only chance to save her lies in sharing their wedding night, and she boldly presses his gun between her breasts. Katrina reveals that in her mortal life, intimacy defined her very existence. There was nothing beyond that for her. They immersed themselves in the sensation of each other's skin and synchronized heartbeat. She felt truly alive and was willing to entrust him with her soul if only to keep it close forever. Her deepest desire was to possess beauty and immortality alike. One fateful day, an offer was presented. If she sought it, it would be hers for the taking. Anna extended this offer after mercilessly annihilating her entire village. She could embrace the gift only if she possessed the strength to withstand its trials. Thus, she transformed into a vampire when Anna bestowed upon her a few drops of blood, granting her eternal life. Soon after, she indulged in passionate encounters with vigorous young men. After these intimate moments, she would mercilessly end their lives. She then fed on their blood, sealing her monstrous nature. Transformed into a stunning yet terrifying creature, she devoured the hearts of young men. She recalls the moment after claiming her second victim post-intimacy. Lying beside him, drenched in his blood, she faced an unsettling truth. In that moment, she realized this existence was not what she truly desired. Once again, life felt hollow, and she lost the feeling of being truly alive. Ultimately, only the presence of another vampire could fill the void inside her, yet even the experiments to achieve this were failing. She remembers the knock at the door and sternly tells him not to address her by that name here. But the visitor informs her that at last they have tracked him down. The male vampire. They tell her his name is Sayaka, sparking her curiosity about the kind of man he truly is. Since he's a vampire, she expects him to satisfy her completely, and she hopes his appearance is just as captivating. Katrina's home displays an eerie trophy room filled with the heads of the men she once loved and then mercilessly killed. She confides that living forever brings only endless monotony and despair. She urges him to abandon his thirst for vengeance and instead choose a life by her side. Confidently, she declares she will take charge and asserts her expertise in leading the way. Then provocatively, she begins to lick his gun, assuring him there's no need to be timid. He firmly refuses, explaining that being with someone a century his senior is simply overwhelming. She retorts sharply, calling him an audacious little bastard. With a burst of strength, Katrina crushes his gun barehanded and reveals her plan to make him her husband. Her fury ignites as she vows to torment him endlessly, reducing him to her permanent plaything. Meanwhile, inside a hospital corridor, a Yakuza member warns his comrades that Lady Katrina is here and they must guard the hallway fiercely, allowing no one through, especially not those Vatican agents. Suddenly, Coco slips into the corridor with a feline grace, moving like a stealthy cat. One Yakuza mutters, questioning if she might be a Vatican spy or informant. Innocently, Coco replies she doesn't understand English and sits on the floor like a cat, appearing a bit simple-minded as the Yakuza exchange glances. Without warning, the Yakuza open fire on Coco, but she moves with lightning speed, attacking and killing 2 men before they can fire a single shot. Shouting fiercely, she warns the 3 remaining Yakuza to stay clear of her path. However, these men quickly raise their guns towards her and resume firing. But Coco moves with lightning speed and fierce energy, leaping into the air to eliminate all 3 attackers in an instant. Soon, she reaches the operating room where a doctor instructs his team to secure as many samples as possible, emphasizing the critical importance of this one. Coco shouts out, announcing that she has located Mirror. Mirror is being held in a specialized care unit. The doctor demands to know what she is doing there and orders her to leave immediately. Refusing to comply, Coco swiftly knocks him unconscious with a single punch. At this moment, Coco carries Mirror on her back, attempting to escape the hospital, while other doctors insist they cannot allow her to take her away. Coco realizes she must act quickly and get out of there as soon as possible. She recalls Suyok's words, acknowledging her thirst for revenge but reminding her that, right now, Mirror and she are his top priority. He urges her to protect Mirror and return to him. She also remembers telling Suyok that she is the one destined to kill Katrina, never forgetting her mission. Suddenly, a woman calls out to Coco, asking if she remembers her since it's been so long and questions whether Coco intends to take that. The woman warns that if Coco plans to take something that belongs to others, she should first seek permission. Coco questions who this woman could be, trying to place her identity. Meanwhile, Katrina's snakes slither menacingly toward our hero, but he methodically shoots them down one after another. He recalls the past, expecting her to persist relentlessly until he exhausts himself, as the bareheaded foes keep surfacing repeatedly. He believes this endless assault will gradually break his resolve, yet he continues firing at the snakes without pause. Katrina remarks that his shots are wild, and its clear desperation is setting in. With the toxic fog rising steadily and snakes advancing relentlessly, both his mind and body are pushed to their breaking point. Ironically, this is the ideal moment for her to strike. Resisting is futile, he already belongs to her. Sayak reveals that she has fallen right into his trap. She questions what he means by that. As she nears him, he brandishes a silver knife and launches a surprise attack. The blade slices across her cheek, drawing blood. She wonders what kind of man he is, certain his mental state is unstable. He coldly declares that her fate is sealed. Her cheek swells as she releases a poisonous vapor into the air. He skillfully cuts through her toxic fog with his knife. All her snakes vanish, and she clutches her wounded face. Bleeding, she lashes out, calling him a daring bastard for playing games with her. The scattered shots were intentional, aimed to disperse the poisonous mist. His act of appearing flustered was a calculated move to reveal a vulnerability and draw her in. After just one confrontation in the hotel, he understood her entire battle strategy. He warns her to surrender, insisting she has nowhere left to escape. She retorts by insulting him, outraged that he dared to scar her face, and knowing the wound won't fade. Katrina's anger erupts as she declares this the moment she stops showing mercy. He notices the snakes converging around him, just as he anticipated. Each snake is gathering blood, their intent clear and menacing. He realizes there's no more time to waste. Suddenly, before she can absorb it all, a snake strikes, biting deep into his arm. Surprised by its swift attack, he's unable to react in time. She declares that her task is complete but threatens to tear his limbs apart if necessary, ensuring he remains alive to endure her torture. The snake coils tightly around his neck, its grip intensifying with each passing second. She warns him that he's premature and expecting pain. Her torment hasn't even truly begun yet. Sayak finds himself completely immobilized. Summoning every ounce of strength, he severs his arm to break free from the snake's relentless hold. He leaps far away, putting as much distance as possible between himself and the threat. Collapsing against a nearby wall, he steadies himself, aware that he must regain control. He knows that if he breaks now, he won't just fail to avenge his teammates. Nor will he ever reach Anna. There's no turning back at this point. In that moment, Katrina lunges, striking him with a spear. The weapon pierces deeply into his chest. He struggles to hear anything, doubting his own strength. In his heart, he offers silent apologies to Coco and Mirror. Katrina sneers, reminding him she was kind when she offered mercy, questioning why he insists on causing trouble. She drags him to the church wall, suspending him, assuring him he won't die just yet. She notes the scar still hasn't healed completely. Content, she thinks of the sun soon rising and how she has Soo-yok, deciding it's time to return and enjoy a well-deserved meal. She returns to him now, her mind racing as she wonders whether he's still aware of his surroundings. Mocking him, she taunts that he must at least meet this baseline to satisfy her demands. Soo-yok struggles desperately to free himself from the grasp of the wall. Katrina's curiosity spikes as she wonders why his efforts to escape continue so fiercely. Without warning, our protagonist's eyes flash a vivid, ominous red. Katrina recoils in fear, haunted by the possibility that he indeed possesses such fearsome eyes. Suddenly, Sayok's hands regenerate seamlessly, extending back from where they had been lost. Terrified, Katrina realizes his speed now outmatches hers, confirming his strength surpasses her own. With a fierce effort, he yanks the sword free from his chest. He leaps down swiftly, landing solidly on the ground below. His wounds heal rapidly in an astonishing display of resilience. With a single decisive strike, he severs her arm, declaring he will never recognize her authority. Katrina recoils in astonishment, unable to react even to the lightning-fast assault moments. A solitary punch sends her hurtling far away from him with overwhelming force. In this moment, he appears utterly monstrous, transformed and terrifying. Katrina struggles to believe it's possible for him to have gained such power in mere months. Rising to her feet, Katrina calls him fortunate for possessing such formidable abilities. She admits that if she had his talents, she would have awakened her true potential long ago. At this critical juncture, both launch into a fierce, relentless exchange of attacks. But this time, Sayok's strength overwhelmingly eclipses hers. Fear grips her as she watches him effortlessly counter her techniques. Exhausted, she falters while our hero relentlessly assaults her with unmatched speed and power. She concludes there is no hope of victory against him in close-quarters combat. Resolving to gain distance, she attempts to leap away swiftly from his relentless pursuit. But Sayang seizes her hand and forcefully hurls her to the ground with overwhelming strength. The impact knocks her unconscious for several seconds. He stands towering directly before her. She realizes how incredibly powerful he is while feeling completely outmatched. Despite this, she struggles to reach for her sword with her snake's assistance. Once she manages to grasp the sword, she strikes him in the eye, driving her sword deep into it. Katrina insists that no matter his strength, this wound should prove deadly. But their opponent is monstrous. With a single powerful blow, his arms penetrate her abdomen. She repeatedly calls him a monster in disbelief. She finally accepts that, as expected, she stands no chance of defeating him. Meanwhile, Lily enters the room, introducing herself as the new leader of the third squad. The female vampire politely asks Lily to take good care of her from now on. Lily wonders about the other's identity and questions why she presented herself as the third squad leader. She's puzzled by the red eye she observes. The female vampire appears very sensitive about her red eye, hinting it may not have fully awakened yet. Suddenly, Lily strikes her red eye with a fierce punch, warning her not to underestimate her. Lily explains she was just speaking casually, but questions if the other is a squad leader as well. At that moment, both young women launch into a flurry of blows against one another. The vampire with the red eye declares that power dictates order and that the weak have no right to survive. She swiftly pins Lily to the ground, issuing a stern warning. She demands that Lily understand the gravity of her words. Lily believes she can understand everything just by looking into her eyes, convinced that no matter the circumstance, the powerful will always come out on top. Inside the church, Katrina and Sayok continue their fierce battle, with Sayok relentlessly striking her. Suddenly, she lashes out, calling him a disrespectful brat and yelling for him not to disdain her with those eyes. Then, summoning all her snakes together, she launches a powerful attack that hurls him far away. She realizes it's been ages since she last wielded this formidable power. Yet again, our resilient hero rises to his feet. Katrina admits she dislikes using this ability because it distorts her appearance. But now that he has witnessed it, there's no choice, he must be eliminated. Katrina transforms, revealing her half-snake, half-human form as she grows immense in size. Face to face with Sayok, both charge at each other with fierce determination. Suddenly, she spits venom at him, declaring this will be his final moment. Despite his rapid regeneration, she vows to erase him completely from existence. Her venom dissolves his flesh into a gaseous form, melting him down cell by cell as he writhes in unbearable agony. The deadly venom takes hold, beginning its destructive effect on Sayok. Within seconds, it completely consumes his flesh, leaving nothing behind. She taunts him, saying that only now have they reached equal footing, despite his extraordinary gifts. Had he truly believed he could defeat her, how utterly pathetic he is. As she steps out of the church, she senses someone behind her. Curious, she wonders why he hasn't completely melted away yet. To her shock, Sayak has returned and is charging at her with a fierce punch aimed at her face. She wonders if his regeneration outpaces the rate at which he is melting away. Outside the church, Coco arrives in a car, urgently yelling for him to hold on. Sitting beside Coco, Mirror warns her not to stick her head out, telling her that Sayak is on his way but that he's likely already lost. Mirror's head is still reeling as she tries to recall how long she's been unconscious. She can't remember anything past the moment she saw those men underground. If Coco's statement is accurate and Sayak confronted the squad leader alone, then he's in grave danger. She silently urges Sayak to hold on just a little longer. As they pull up to the church, Coco leaps out and races inside while Mirror instructs her team to stay back for the moment. Coco calls out to Sayak, anxiously wondering if he managed to bring her down. Inside the church, they find utter destruction. Mirror realizes this must be the fifth squad leader's power and cautions Coco to keep her distance. Most importantly, they wonder where Sayak is. Suddenly, Katrina spots the girls. She questions why they have come here. It was Lily's job to keep watch over them after all. She only let her guard down for a brief moment. And in that instant, he delivers a punch straight to her face. This blow leaves deep gashes across her face. She spits out an insult, calling him a despicable cockroach and wishing for his death. Katrina now lies helpless, suspended in the air. Mirror's heart aches with concern for their comrade. Katrina snarls at her to be quiet, warning that she's the next target. Katrina remains puzzled about how they managed to slip past Lily's watchful eye. Despite everything, she's resolute to eliminate them all first and deal with the consequences later. Gathering every ounce of his strength, Sayak launches a fierce attack against her. She focuses intently, preparing to unleash the most potent venom she's ever concocted. She intends to obliterate them completely. This marks the final showdown. With that, she hurls her lethal venom straight at him with terrifying force. As her venom strikes, she begins to question whether Sayak has disappeared from sight. It becomes clear that this power is not Sayak's own ability. Instead, this mysterious power originates from the red-eyed Lily. Katrina wonders if Lady Anna has authorized her to take out both her and her ineffective companion. Just as Lady Anna predicted, Sayak is steadily gaining strength. Lily declares that true power enforces order and that the weak don't deserve to survive. Doesn't Katrina grasp the gravity of her words? Suddenly from behind, our boy sinks his teeth into Katrina's neck. Katrina feels abandoned, just like Ayaka and Coco before her. Determined, she refuses to let everything be torn away so easily. She yells at Sayak to release her, as he relentlessly drains blood from her neck. Her snake bites back at him from behind, but fears surge that she's losing control far too quickly. Is this the way she ends? She never wished for any of this chaos. All she truly desires is a peaceful, joyful life. She questions Anna, asking if all this was inevitable from the start. If that's the case, why did Anna give her blood in the first place? She's not ready to die, not by a long shot. Moments later, Katrina collapses heavily onto the floor. Mirror reports that he single-handedly defeated the squad leader. However, in his current state, he poses a danger to everyone around him. She contemplates her next course of action carefully. Without warning, Coco leaps onto Sayak and wraps him in a tight embrace. Mirror urgently warns her to keep her distance from him. Coco repeatedly confronts him, demanding why he broke his promise, her words echoing insistently. Sayak suddenly lifts his hand toward Coco. Mirror urgently warns Coco to back away immediately, just as she prepares to strike him. But Sayak gently places his hand over Coco's and apologizes, explaining he had no other option and expressing relief that she's unharmed. At that moment, Sayak lies on the floor while Coco sits on his stomach, resembling a child at ease. Coco anxiously wonders if Sayak is dead, and Mirror reassures her that he is still alive. Sayak awakens in a hospital room with Mirror seated on another bed nearby. Coco has just jumped down. Mirror asks if he's conscious, and when he asks where he is, she explains he's in the task force's hotel medical facility. He immediately wants to know about Katrina. Mirror informs him Katrina is being taken for an autopsy and comments on how rare it is to capture a squad leader alive. She assures him that Cecilia and other task force members are escorting Katrina securely, so there's no need to worry. Both Sayak and Mirror relax in the moment. Suddenly, a bag filled with blood crashes into Sayak's face. Mirror is the one who throws the bag at him. When Sayak questions her, she explains she's trying to lift his spirits, praising him for taking down a squad leader and rescuing someone on his first mission, a remarkable achievement for a newcomer. He counters, letting her know that this wasn't actually his first encounter. He reveals that he's faced vampires before and suffered defeats. Those battles cost him the lives of comrades he deeply valued. Although he ultimately captured the squad leader, all he truly remembers are his previous losses to vampires. He acknowledges that a single mistake could have endangered both her and his fellow team members. Seated on Mirror's bed, Coco sips blood from a bag as Mirror tells him he's changed. He admits that Ayaka was right. Hearing Aka's name brings a smile of joy to Coco's face. Mirror explains she witnessed him remain aware even during his berserk frenzy, and suspects that drinking Katrina's blood enhanced his strength. Although his berserk state unleashed tremendous power, he lacked control due to his unconsciousness. However, after consuming the squad leader's blood, signs of self-awareness began to emerge. If he learns to harness and direct that power consciously, his strength will surely increase, though this remains a theory. She believes his progress is evident in the gaze of his eyes. Continuing, she notes that unlike his current vampire eyes, which are still developing, they have definitely transformed. The next evolutionary phase would involve red irises contrasted by black sclera, essentially reversed eyes. Intrigued, he asks about the significance of these black eyes. Coco mentions she has encountered those distinct black eyes before. Mirror confirms this is true, revealing it belonged to that very squad leader. Sayak asks Coco if she has any knowledge about the meaning behind those eyes. She replies she doesn't, prompting Mirror's frustration, questioning why Coco claims to have seen them if she truly knows nothing. Coco innocently retorts, "Did I really say that?" He reflects that even among squad leaders, vampires who reach such a stage are probably quite rare. Considering their ability to regenerate a severed arm so rapidly, it's clear that such power is far from common. Given the situation, Coco gestures toward Mirror and explains that she believed she was being helpful, a deduction that Mirror finds quite reasonable. He concludes that her skills confirm why she's a bishop, a title earned for good reason. Mirror expresses gratitude but quickly becomes intrigued by his sudden show of appreciation. He reveals that thanks to her, his distracting thoughts have vanished, and he sincerely appreciates her trust and commitment to the plan. She comments wryly that anyone might mistake him for the team leader at this rate. Predictably, one person acting solo complicated the entire situation. She questions whether they should have abandoned the hostages, but he tells her to relax, quickly adding that he's only joking. While she admits the plan unfolded as intended, she feels annoyed by his attempts to equate himself with her, realizing ultimately she just needs to become stronger. Sayak mocks her, joking that they're familiar with that tactic, and Coco confirms they probably are. Standing just outside room 1703, Lucia assumes Mirror has revealed everything because of Suyak's strategy. She reflects bitterly on how close Mirror came to death and feels outraged that he endangered Sister Mirror, confronting Mirror insistently, emphasizing her need for his blood. Just as Lucia prepares to enter, she suddenly hears Sayak's voice from inside. Inside, he tells Coco to be gentle, reminding her this is his first time. Lucia interprets this as confirmation that it truly is his first experience. Her thoughts drift to an intimate scene between Sayak and Coco, with Coco softly pleading for him to be gentle. She reflects wistfully that even vampires experience this, and her heart aches for Myro, who is bedridden in the hospital, while Sayak has already become entangled with Coco. Lost in a swirl of troubling thoughts, Lucia suddenly collapses to the floor, overwhelmed. Inside the room, Sayak drains Coco's blood and she admits feeling an unusual sensation. Coco then questions how much longer he intends to continue going out. Lucia envisions Coco asking the same question during their intimate moments, and after all that Mirror has endured because of Sayak, Lucia is filled with profound sorrow. She bangs on the door, yelling that Sayak's behavior is terrible and warning she will reveal everything to Sister Mirror. Lucia bursts into tears and flees, while Sayak and Coco are left baffled, trying to understand the meaning behind her words.